Okay, we're live. Good afternoon. This is a hearing of the Chatham Conservation Commission being held on December 14th, 2022, in accordance with the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Town of Chatham Wetlands Protection Bylaw and Regulations. My name is Bob Rawls and I serve as the chair. Today's hearing is being broadcast live on Channel 18 and is being recorded for the on-demand archives available on the town's website. It is being conducted in person, by phone, and by video conference. The agenda, instructions on how to attend, and copies of documents for review are posted on the town's website. To all participants, whether attending by phone or online, please remain muted unless you've been recognized by the chair. If you are attending by phone, you can mute and unmute by using *6. If you're online and you're not a commissioner, please keep your camera turned off unless you've been recognized. Indicate that you wish to speak by using the raise hand feature. When recognized, please identify yourself for the record. So that we have a record of a quorum, I'll now ask each commissioner to indicate their presence. Vice Chair Bob Delvecchio is not here today. Janet Williams.
Present.
Karen Latin.
Present.
Mary Sullivan was supposed to be online.
She's calling in.
I don't see her for the moment. Elise Gordon.
Present.
Cheryl Meservey is away, and I am here, so we do have a quorum.
I am also here.
Okay, Mary is here. All right, good. We have at least in my tenure, an historically long agenda today, so we're going to be moving along as quickly as we can so that we can get it all done before dark. But also, as I've learned, there's another group scheduled for this room we have to be out of here by 4:30. And so if we haven't finished by then, we may have to shuffle next door to the small room. Hopefully, though, we won't have to do that. So please, everyone, I invite you to keep your presentations and questions succinct and to the point. Protracted discussions may result in a continuance to next year. Nikki Smith, Chatham's conservation agent, who is online today, will lead us through the agenda.
All right, thank you. The first order up for business is a request for an extension to an order of conditions. 83 Siegel Road, 30 Withies Way, 0 Starfish Lane, 27, 59, 75, and 97 to Lippy Run, and 0 to Squatham Road. The orders of condition numbers are 10-3333, 10-3334, and 10-3233. And 3277. These are all, they're asking for a 1-year extension for dredging. And it looks like Catherine's here to talk about it.
Yes,
Catherine
Catherine Ricks with Coastal Engineering, here on behalf of the applicants. This is just a request to extend these in order to continue the maintenance dredging while we are working on a master plan to actually combine it into one project. But this is the last extension we can get on these permits, so we're just requesting the extension while we work on the master plan so we can at least be dredged one more time before we file for, or might file in the meantime, but make sure that we can dredge next year while we work on this master plan.
All right, thank you, Catherine. So this is the last. You're out of extensions. Okay. All right.
Yep, this is it.
Okay. Good.
And working to combine them into one.
One
larger,
master.
not just
yes,
one.
that'll be nice. That will be nice.
How's that coming? Is it, we've been hearing about it for a couple of years, so hope it's coming soon.
Yes.
All right.
It'd be great.
Questions, comments? All right. Yeah. So it seems like a good idea. And well, we don't have a motion maker today.
Oh, I'll do it.
I'll do it. Okay. And Karen
All right.
can continue her job.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the request for extension for the 4 outermost harbor orders of
You have to
condition.
read them all.
I'm not going to read them. Motion to approve it.
Latin second.
Roll call vote, Janet,
Aye.
Elise,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
and I vote aye too. That's right, Mary, you are by phone today, okay.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks, we'll see you in a year.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you'll see me a
For
little
that-
later.
for
See you in a
that,
little
yeah.
while.
All right, next we have a request for a plan change at 41 Locust Lane, Jonathan and Alicia Downs, map 15F, parcel 53, SE 103478. Addition of 37 feet of catwalk to allow access over dense vegetation to the waters of Black Pond.
Does it matter where, here or there? Does it matter? Is there a preference?
Doesn't matter to me,
Okay,
wherever you feel comfortable, I think.
okay. I'm Stephanie Sequin with Ryder and Wilcox, and I'm representing John and Alicia Downs. Have the commissioners been to this site recently? Okay, all right, I had some photos, but if you've been there, then I don't need to hand those out. So this property is at 41 Locust Lane. It's off Old Harbor Road. The property has frontage on Black Pond. Some of you may recall, in June of 2020, you issued an order of conditions for the raise and replace of an existing single-family dwelling. That project was wrapped up earlier this year. In April of 2021, you issued another order of conditions for the creation of a path and dug-in steps down the hill to a catwalk going across the BVW in order to access the water of Black Pond. That was a proposed 60-foot-long catwalk, 3 feet wide, elevated across the wetland. That was constructed in spring of this year, per the plan. The family arrived at the house this summer, June, July, went down to the catwalk and was surprised to see that it didn't get them to the water. So between the time our survey work was initially done and even when the catwalk was constructed this spring, it was at the water's edge. Over the summer, the water level in the pond receded. It went much further into the pond. And so you get to the end of the catwalk and there's this wide swath of extremely thick, tall, very healthy vegetation, but it's just impossible to traverse through it. So we met, contacted Nikki and met with her the end of August just to, take a look at the situation. And it was decided that we should locate the standing water at that time and submit a revised plan showing extending that catwalk an additional 37 feet to get over that vegetation and be able to access the water. So that's what's been submitted is we've got a revised plan with the what was the water level this fall. And we're just asking for the commission to accept the revised plan and allow the extension of the catwalk so that they are able to get to the water.
Okay, thank you. Does this need other approvals?
It will have to go back to the zoning board of appeals.
Okay, you haven't filed for that?
We
though.
have not yet.
Okay.
We're just trying to get through this.
Stephanie, have you heard from Sarah? She said she was going to email everyone that had applications.
I did not get an email.
Okay, because she's saying that zoning is not going to like it. I think it looks like the very end, a little rectangle of it beyond the edge of pond. She said that will make it more of a pier, not a catwalk.
Okay.
So I think she had an issue with, I think that was really her only issue.
So how much of it is, I'm not sure what you're referring, or what she was referring to as far as the triangle.
So at the very end, it says, like at the 9/23 date, edge of pond, and it has
Right.
that line.
Right?
The little section that extends beyond that, so it's going beyond the edge of the pond, so then it would have to meet dock standards.
Okay. So we need to stop it, end it before that water line.
Yeah, it needs to
Okay.
end like right where the water is. I believe, I mean, I would talk to her to see if there's any other issues, but I do know that she said as is, it would not be approved.
Okay.
So Janet,
Yeah, I too had a concern when I saw that, Stephanie, because the order of conditions had specified that the catwalk stopped short of the edge of the pond, so, and that raises a question. The water level in the pond fluctuates, and we had a drought this past summer, so it was for, like, it fell. What happens when there's not a drought and the water level comes back up to a previous level, such as the one in 2020, which was much closer to where the catwalk ended?
As far as that, all I can suggest is that the sections be designed so that they can be removable, the deck portion of the catwalk, maybe having permanent stub piles, but removable posts and decking.
Well, that was getting me into the next question, which was, would this be seasonal? And I think the answer is yes, because if the water level does rise back up, you can't really you'll have the catwalk sitting in water, and this is Black Pond, which can freeze. You'd have a situation you don't want. It all gets complicated pretty quickly for a plan change, is kind of where I was coming out with this, that there may be some extra conditions that we would want.
So I told Stephanie, start with a plan change, and if it's too much, I was hoping that we could consider this phase one, and then she could come back again. It sounds like the plan's gonna have to be revised anyway.
Yeah.
So she could come back, and the next one would be phase two, because that's when they have to notify abutters and everything like that.
For a formal request for an amended order, I assume
Yeah.
is what Nikki's
Because
referring
we would
to.
need to change some of the conditions that are in here. If it's going to be seasonal, then we'd have all the conditions about removal, storage. And I think we would also want to add that it not be extended into the open water of the pond if the water levels change. And so having sections that are removed would allow for the
Okay.
movement of the thing.
yeah, it seems like we could just sort of informally consider this to be a phase one request. Just
Request for an
convert it on
amended
the
order.
fly.
We can do it
Okay.
by motion. We'll do it. We'll do it by
you wanna
motion.
I just wanted to chime in, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Rob McPhee, we're the builder for the property and participated with the permitting on this before. And just to voice the concerns as the homeowners, as they're not able to be here today. Their goal is for their kids to be able to access that pond, and if you have that chance to go down to the boardwalk as it's constructed, you can see the dense growth from the end of it to the actual water. So if you were to try to place a kayak or a canoe in the pond, it's pretty thick today. We have pictures from the end of the summer and how thriving everything was, including coming through the boardwalk, which just goes to show how well the habitat is doing with that elevated boardwalk. So, I mean, I think I get the gist of the commission's feedback just now, but if there's any guidance or suggestions that you have, since you are the regulators of it, from a conservation standpoint, to share with us, to try to give them the access to the pond. We understand that as the water levels fluctuate, the pier, I guess, would have to be adjusted accordingly. I was there on Monday afternoon, and I could see how much the water has come up since the end of August when we were there. And, so it's clear that changes, but there's that dense growth to try to get over. And when you look at other properties on the pond, many of them just have planks going through the mud.
Yeah.
And that's their access. And it
Right,
may
we're-
work, but it doesn't.
I don't think we're doubting the need
Okay.
of the applicant to have access. That's not the issue here.
Okay.
It's the procedure
Sure.
that we need to follow.
And we want to protect that dense growth because
Right.
that is actually
Right.
the
Yeah,
vegetation.
it would appear it's working really well. the way it's designed and in place currently.
But I do have a question. I guess, I don't know, I'm not sure who to ask the question of, but my note, I didn't actually get to get out there this week. I was just out of time. But my notes indicate that we had the discussion our first time when the catwalk was put in about the decking material. What is it now? What is the decking material? Because the reason I ask is that this proposal here mentions both through flow and aluminum, and I'm not sure if those are mutually exclusive or not.
The decking that's installed is through flow decking.
Is that the plastic?
It's the poly that is in place.
Plastic?
Yeah, I mean, it's called poly
I
from
know
the
it's called poly,
manufacturer,
yeah.
but yeah, plastic. It is the through flow decking.
Because I thought we had
The order called for aluminum.
aluminum.
It did, and so we recently, Stephanie and I were discussing that because we discovered when we were down there this fall looking at this, that the order got recorded with aluminum, but it was originally being proposed as the poly, and then there was some discussion during the permitting process.
That's right.
Which produced some feedback from the manufacturer of it, confirming that nothing from the poly or plastic leaches.
Well, that was their assertion, yes.
Okay.
We didn't necessarily accept it.
Yeah. So, I didn't want to muddy the waters in bringing up the decking material, but you've brought it up, it's a great question. I would ask the board to reconsider, and again, I don't want to muddy the idea of amending.
Well, it's
equal-
been muddied because it was issued for aluminum.
Yeah.
The
Well,
permit was issued for
If it
aluminum.
has to be swapped out to the aluminum, then that'll be the end. My observation, I guess I'd ask the commission to consider is a lot of these homes that you're approving through conservation have PVC trim, PVC decking. There's a lot of plastics in the environment that are being put on these properties.
Yeah, I
And
know, we're trying to cut back on it. Yeah, and this is one way we can do it. But, so Stephanie, this is something for you to work out. We have another issue here, which is that what was permitted was not installed. As far as reconsidering that, I guess we can sort of reopen that box again, but we had a lot of discussion, not only on this property, but others about that, and we came to sort of a conclusion. And we thought we had agreement from you folks, and now it looks like we didn't. So that is an issue.
And just for the record, it wasn't switched intentionally.
Oh, whatever the reason was.
But I want you to know for the record, it wasn't switched intentionally. When we look at the history, the April 5th plan that was originally being presented had the poly through flow decking.
It did.
And then it was
Initially it did.
revised on April
Yeah.
7th. And when you look at the order of conditions, the special request from this commission referenced the poly, but the date on the second page of the order of conditions references the April 7th plan, which converted it from poly to aluminum. So there's some administrative aspects of that, both in the order as well as on our end. The bottom line is poly is in place. It can be switched out to the aluminum if that's the case.
Okay.
I'm just asking the board to consider as far
Well,
as,
we'll deal with that when you come back.
yeah.
Yeah, we can't deal with that today.
Right.
Okay, so we are agreed then, are we agreed to treat this as a phase one?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's definitely related to the, so I'm going to make a motion that 41 Locust Lane, this hearing treat that, what has happened today as a Phase 1 request for, to amend the order of conditions. And when do we want to schedule that?
Let's hear from Nikki.
Well, we'll have to submit
Yeah,
the
that'll be when
paperwork and
Stephanie-
the
Yeah.
butter so,
Say it again, Nikki.
Yeah, Stephanie has to do the application and everything, so she'll
Okay,
determine.
oh, right, so we're not going to schedule it,
It'll
right,
be up to-
once it comes in. So the motion is to treat this as a Phase 1 completed, and the applicant will move on to Phase 2.
Yeah. Roll call vote. Janet?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Karen? Mary?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
okay,
All right.
thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
I was going to tell you, I saw that the poly was there.
All right, next we have a request for determination of applicability for 0 Davis Lane, Dan Brickman, map 10A, parcel 2A, flush cutting and pruning several previously pruned trees.
Hi, good afternoon. Teresa Sprague with Blue Flax Design on behalf of Dan Brickman, the applicant, and Chatham Conservation Foundation, the property owner. Our request before you today is to flush cut to manage for vistas some previously cut trees, 14 oaks and 4 cherry trees in the view easement area that had been previously flush cut and for the past 11 years have been managed to be maintained at a height of between 6 and 8 feet. I know that none of the commissioners currently sitting on the board were sitting on the board at the time when the original plan was brought before you through the view easement and vista management process. Back in 2011, we came before you with a restoration plan. Mr. Brickman, the owner of 20 Davids Lane, has a view easement over the property owned by Chatham Conservation Foundation. At that time, in 2011, Mr. Brickman, misinterpreting his rights under the view easement, went and did some clearing on the Chatham Conservation Foundation property, and a restoration plan was then put in place and brought before the Conservation Commission and was approved. In that restoration plan, part of that was to continue to maintain the vistas under the easement by maintaining those oak and cherry trees at a height of 6 to 8 feet. I have some pictures from 2001 that I shared via email with Nikki. I have hard copies if that would be helpful for you. I'd be happy to pass out.
Sure.
Your permission? Okay.
Yeah.
As well as an ortho plan that was done by Eldridge Surveying and Engineering back in 2011 that shows the view easement info on the property. So as those photos pass around, you'll be able to see that back in 2001, the trees that we're proposing to manage that are all flagged in the field if you had an opportunity. Yeah, there's 2 separate photos and then the ortho plan. Had been basically flush cut to the ground, and we're regenerating. And as I've discussed with this board previously, managing trees that want to be 60 or 70 feet tall at a height of 6 to 8 feet has its challenges. And when I went back and reviewed the 2011 restoration plan that we had submitted, at that time, I had written in that plan that managing these trees, canopy trees, at a height of 6 to 8 feet was really not a long-term sustainable solution for view management on this property. And as I had predicted back in 2011, we're here now before you 11 years later, and these trees are now at a height where they are, we're really not able to manage them appropriately at that height of 6 feet, really without topping and doing significant damage to the trees. So we're requesting permission today to start over again, flush cut the trees, allow them to coppice regenerate and manage back and continue to manage those trees at a height of 6 to 8 feet until I suspect, 10 or 11 years from now, we'll be back again with a similar request. I did discuss with Chatham Conservation Foundation and with Mr. Brickman an option of flush cutting these trees and planting this whole area out with shrubs that would not require pruning in the future. At the time when I first met with Julie and Paul Chamberlain from Chatham Conservation Foundation, their feeling was they would rather keep the oak trees in place and manage them. I have had some discussion with Julie actually yesterday where we all agree that if the commission felt that the best management practice would be to flush cut the trees, treat them, and then plant them with native shrubs, that would be an option that CCF, and I don't want to put words in Julie's mouth, she's of course capable of speaking, but would be willing to consider, and certainly Mr. Brickman would be happy to implement.
Okay, all right. That puts a little bit different complexion on the situation in
This,
my mind.
yes, just brand new, hot off the presses
Okay, all
after
right.
discussion with Julie yesterday.
I assume that you concur, you would go along with, feel free to go up there if
Yeah.
you want to say something about it. Just identify yourself when you get there.
I'm Julie Baca from the Chatham Conservation Foundation. So, as Teresa explained, there's a view easement over our property. And so our understanding is that Mr. Brickman is allowed to seek to restore his view. But that the commission can make decisions on the extent and method of cutting or whatever to restore the view easement, and we will do what the commission feels is appropriate.
Okay, does the foundation have an objection to the more permanent solution, which would be
Shrubs.
taking the trees down and planting equivalent biomass in shrubs so that they wouldn't have to be topped
No,
ever
we
again?
don't. I'd say it was only probably yesterday that I thought that this wouldn't necessarily have to be proposed again in 10 years if we flush cut it. And the reason why we were leaning towards that solution was thinking about leaving the roots that are already stabilizing the area in. Yes, if the commission feels it is more appropriate to replace with shrubs, we are fine with that.
Is there a slope there that would preclude taking, or,
There is no real slope there, and as a matter of fact, we are managing a path that allows access for people who'd like to visit this property that runs directly behind those trees that had been previously cut. So we do mow that path once a year, and it allows anybody who'd like to come and walk around that property access. It's a public property as Chatham Conservation Foundation property. So there's no concern about destabilizing a slope or anything like
Okay.
that. If we were to manage that way, we would cut the trees, we would allow those roots to biodegrade naturally, immediately plant the shrubs this spring so that their roots would be established well before the roots of the oaks and cherry trees biodegraded. So there would be no soil disturbance other than the disturbance required to plant the shrubs.
right, what would you estimate it to be the number of shrubs that would be?
I would recommend planting between 3 and 5 shrubs per tree, and I would recommend bayberry and beach plum. They're thriving in that area. Bayberry and beach plum are thriving. They do very well in that area. The biggest thing is I'd want to start with a slightly smaller size because getting water out to them is difficult. There had been water in this area back in that 2011 restoration, but that has all since been removed. We could certainly get water back out, and we will have to, but I would probably start with something in the range of a 2-gallon shrub and give them time to get established.
Okay,
I feel like this is the second time today I'm going to say this. It feels like it's more complex than a simple up or down vote in an RDA. Because we're talking now about removing trees and it
Understood.
becomes a different restoration plan. But the two things that jump out at me are that I understand the easement. That's between CCF and the property owner, between two private parties. That doesn't involve the Conservation Commission. What I want to see is evidence that the Conservation Commission approved a view corridor to allow the cutting of those trees to 6 to 8 feet. I think it's probably in the restoration. I think this all came out of the violation that was worked on. But I haven't seen anything that says that the Conservation Commission has approved keeping those trees at that 6 to 8 foot limit. So I'd like to see that so that we're not approving something that has not already been done. And the second thing is because it's an
There is
RD.
an order of condition,
Is
there's
there?
an order of conditions that says, maintain at, I think it says 8 or 6 or 6 to, or both of them.
think
but
it's
it says,
6 to 8,
Something.
Is that the, what year is that, do you know?
I don't have it right in front of me.
Okay, but you have it. Can we get?
Yes,
we
there
need-
is an order that says.
Can we get copies and
maintain
get that on
that.
the record so that we're not making this determination for the first time? That's what worries me. I don't want to be doing
Understood,
that.
yes.
And the second thing is that as an RDA, thank you for this plan, because I was struggling with not, and when I was on site, I did see they were flagged, but I couldn't tell where I was vis-à-vis the resource area. I've seen reference to some of these are in the 50-foot
Correct.
NDZ, some of them are in the 100 maybe, not sure.
I think they're all in the 50-foot buffer.
Okay, is there a way of putting them on,
We-
putting them on the plan so that we can see exactly where they are?
We can, and I think what I'm hearing from the commission is that with this change, where we're going to be proposing to remove the trees and plant shrubs, it would be preferable to come forward with a notice of intent in which we're specifically calling out a view corridor for approval by the Conservation Commission. And one thing that Julie and I discussed is that's different from the view easement,
Correct.
which is, like you said, a legal matter between Chatham Conservation Foundation and Dan Brickman. But that we would then specifically call out a vista management corridor for the Conservation Commission on a plan of record.
That would be the clean way to go.
Okay.
And
I
in that
completely-
reference, I do have a 2014 order of conditions here.
I believe this one was 2012.
Okay, so
the
that,
original.
that's,
Yeah.
just referencing that in the record,
Yes, we can
Okay.
absolutely do that.
that would be.
So procedurally, would you prefer if I withdraw the request for determination of applicability, or if you provide a positive determination?
Probably best to withdraw.
I would
and
say
reissue.
withdraw, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, I mean,
No, that's good.
everybody else on the commission, are we on the same page here? Okay. Yeah,
Okay,
I think it's the right way to do it, a little more involved, but it takes care of it forever.
yes,
Or relatively speaking.
I agree. With this change, I agree with you completely. So with that, I would request to withdraw our request for determination of applicability.
And I'll make a motion to approve the request to withdraw.
Thank
We'll
you.
call a vote.
Latin second.
Yeah. We'll call a vote, Janet.
Aye.
Elise.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Okay, we'll file that notice for next year. Thank you.
Yep, all right, thank you. Thank you,
Thanks, John.
All right, next up, we have the notices of intent. The first one is 1076 and 1082 Main Street. Main Street Village Condominium Trust, map 12F, parcel 6B XD0. And SC, I haven't gotten any SC numbers. Remove invasive vegetation and restore native vegetation in the 50-foot buffer to a BVW. Improve access around the structure for maintenance.
Hi, good afternoon again. Teresa Sprague with Blue Flax Design. I believe an SC number has been issued, but I didn't bring the file with me. So I can have somebody in my office look that up and get that information for you. Teresa Sprague with Blue Flax Design here on behalf of the Main Street Main Street Village Condominium Association. Marla Cannell, who is the president of the association, is also joining us in the audience. The project that we're bringing before you today is mainly an invasive plant management project with some issues being brought on by the significant infestation of Japanese knotweed that is currently moving into other parts of the property and disrupting some of the structure. The Main Street Village Condominium Association developed property, a series of condominiums with attached decks, shell paths, and asphalt drive and parking area. Resource areas on the property include land under a water body and a bordering vegetated wetland, along with the associated 50 and 100-foot buffer zones or in adjacent upland resource areas. Introduced landscape plantings populate the southern portion of the property, mainly hydrangeas, pear trees, arborvitae, landscape roses, and lawn. The northern portion of the property that abuts Perch Pond contains just a few introduced native species, including some bayberry, beach plum, and Virginia rose. But invasive vegetation, which is mainly concentrated on the slope directly abutting the BVW, makes up 98% or more of the vegetation or the plant community on this portion of the property. The invasive vegetation on the site includes vine and shrub honeysuckle, bittersweet, porcelain berry, mugwort, white poplar, sycamore maple, some Phragmites reed at the edge of the pond, and most significantly, a significant amount of Japanese knotweed. There are no ACECs and no natural heritage or endangered species priority or estimated habitats on this parcel. Really the main threats to the ecology and stability of the site is the intensity of the invasive vegetation directly abutting the wetland and perch pond. There's no proposed increase in structure on this site. In all, we're proposing to manage an area of approximately 16,000 square feet, which is highlighted in green on our invasive species management plan. There are 10 white poplars located on this bank, along with 2 sycamore maples that we are proposing to remove as part of the invasive species management project. After the invasive management initial phase is completed, the slope will be seeded and stabilized with 100% biodegradable erosion control blanket. We would then do follow-up management for 1 year before planting woody vegetation back on the site. When woody vegetation would be replanted, we're proposing 21 trees, 304 shrubs, and 76 grasses and wildflowers. Any native vegetation that's existing will remain. Any that's damaged by particularly the porcelain berry vine and the Asiatic bittersweet may be regeneratively pruned to bring it back. Those shrubs that are native, that are located, are directly abutting that shell pathway that wraps around just to the north of the building. And what's happening now is that invasive vegetation, and particularly the Japanese knotweed, is moving into that area and disrupting that shell pathway. So once we do the initial invasive species removal, we'd just like to restore that shell pathway to maintain access and circulation to the north of the units. We provide several photographs of the site conditions. These were taken earlier in the summer, in June, I believe, on pages on pages 3 and 5 of our land management plan that really shows you the extent of the invasive vegetation on this site and the intensity of the invasion on this site. On page 8, we discuss the vegetation restoration process and the species that will be restored, including amelanchier, eastern red cedar, chokeberry, bayberry, winterberry holly, summer sweet, potentilla, fragrant sumac, Carolina rose, and switchgrass. So we're really striving to improve biodiversity on this site. And we get into detail on pages 14 and 15 regarding the performance standards and how we feel this project meets and exceeds the performance standards. So I think this is a very straightforward invasive species management and restoration project, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have about the project.
Thank you, Teresa.
I was happy to see the replacement of the trees when I first went there, and I read how many trees were coming out. I then went home and read the complete report that you'd sent, and thank you for replacing the trees. It is a mess. That bank is heavily invaded, so
Yes.
your plan makes a lot of sense to me.
Okay. No comments? All right. Janet?
I'm glad to see this project going forward. It is an area that needs some restoration, so I don't have any concerns.
I don't have too many.
But you have a few.
I do have a question about, of the 21 trees, 16 are serviceberry.
Yes.
And, you know, I sort of think of serviceberries as, on the Cape, as large shrubs. Because, you know, our soil's not that great and they sort of stay shrub-like. I don't know if that's your experience when you plant them.
Generally, we would consider them small trees or understory trees.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Is there a reason why you selected that many, and is there a way,
No,
would there be a reason not to substitute some of those out for actual, what I consider to be actual trees?
Sure. So there are a number of tupelo and oak trees on the site that will remain. So the native trees would remain in place. So the understory trees are just meant to provide, again, some vertical layering, particularly on the slope. While this project clearly is not, we're not doing this for vistas, we're certainly doing this because the association is concerned mainly about the stability of the slope, and they're concerned about erosion and water going over the top of the slope. We are also trying to be sensitive to the fact that views to the pond are important for the property owners. So by planting a mix of the amelanchiers with the eastern red cedars along with the existing oak and tupelo, we feel like we have a good canopy cover on the site.
So you're considering these more to be understory?
We would consider them to be understory trees, so in
Okay.
general, they reach a height of about 20 feet.
Okay, ideally, right? All right, well, Yeah, that was the only thing that I think, so you don't plan to put in any more walking stones or anything like that? You might replenish some of the shell that's back there?
Just replenish some of the shell that's been disturbed around the area and just to provide access and circulation. We did discuss with the association perhaps removing the shells and replacing that with a microclover fescue grass mix that could be mown, but this time, the association would prefer to maintain the shells, and then if they'd like to change that, we would come back and request
right,
that change.
okay. Was there mitigation there for the condominiums themselves, or is that too far back?
I would defer to David Clark, who did the initial filing for that. You may have some answers.
David Clark Engineering, for the record. This was a 40B project. A comprehensive permit was issued by the Zoning Board of Appeals. So at that time, the applicants asked for waivers from all local regulations and
okay.
rules and regulations. So no mitigation was technically required.
Okay,
The commission did push back on that, and there is on the west side of the property an elaborate stormwater control system that not only incorporates runoff from this site, but from Old Main Street and Route 28, because there is a catch basin out on 28 that used to pass through a culvert under the westerly building out to the pond, and that has been diverted into this stormwater control. So the mitigation for the project was really a stormwater mitigation.
control, okay, thank you.
And that is a portion of the project that is becoming infested with Japanese knotweed, and that we are going to be managing and restoring that stormwater management basin.
Okay. All right. So other than, asking whether or not some of the service barrier can be swapped out, I don't have any issues. And if your professional opinion is that it's not the right way to go, then I can accept that.
I feel very confident that with the existing native canopy trees, the Amelanchier will make a nice mid-story that will add to the diversity and the layering on the site.
All right. All right, anything else? It doesn't sound like it.
All right, then, so Nikki, to you, if we schedule this to go to a work session, I'm not really exactly sure how we have a new calendar starting in January, which puts the
understand.
work sessions at the last Wednesday of the month,
Okay.
rather than the first.
25th.
Unless we have one, do we have anything on the, on the 28th? Do we have a hearing on the 28th?
No.
I don't believe so.
Okay, so I had that on my calendar, so I'm not sure.
No.
So for today, anything we send to a work session is going to go to the January 25th.
Right.
Okay.
So if I may, the only concern that I have with that is the association would like to get the work underway before bird nesting season cuts us off in April. So as long as we have enough time for a permit to be issued to get work underway before we get cut off on April 1st for bird nesting season, that would be my only.
How much time do you need?
To mobilize, not much time at all. I just don't know how long it's going to take to issue the permit. So if it's the end of January, we should have a permit by the end of February?
Yeah.
Okay, that should give us time to mobilize before,
Okay.
You should have it well before then. I mean, if they approve it January 25th, then Crystal usually mails them out the Thursday, Friday, or next Monday. So
perfect.
you should have it by the beginning of February.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
You can pre-stage, I guess, before.
Okay.
All right, then I'll make a motion to continue 1076, 1082 Main Street to the work session on January 20, heck was it? 5th.
Yeah,
Martin, second.
Roll call vote, Janet.
Aye.
Elise.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next notice of intent is 33 John Gilpin Lane, Ron K. Hay, map 10E, parcel 52HJ-6, landscaping and path to pond.
Good afternoon. My name is Clint Kanega, and I'm with Ponderosa Landscaping. The project at 33 John Gilpin Lane, the site borders on White Pond, and thus the resource area is an inland bank. The 100-foot buffer zone encompasses the back half of the existing house and all the way to the pond. And the banking is well vegetated with pine and oak trees, an understory of mostly native shrubs, huckleberry, blueberry, bayberry, viburnum, winterberry. It was obviously planted pretty well when the house was built in 2008. Inkberry, but many of the native shrubs are engulfed in invasives such as poison ivy, oriental bittersweet, porcelainberry. So one of the first things orders of business will be to try to remove by hand as much as possible the invasive species, and then if there's any gaps left, to plant with native species in those places, and then to manage the invasives as they come back before they take over again. There is a base cover over the banking of fescues, tall and creeping, switchgrass and other grasses and sedges, and in and around the native shrubs. So the proposed project is has several aims. The main one is to provide better access to the pond for the owners with an improved pathway and steps, stone steps along the back of the house in front of the deck, because it slopes quite a bit from west to east, and then down the slope towards the pond. And it's a fairly gradual slope, but one of the clients are elderly and would like to put a railing in along the steps as well. So the proposal would be to use cedar posts or stone. There is an existing low rail fence at the top of the banking that they'd like to replace as well. It was obviously put in at the time to kind of indicate the the native species, an undisturbed area at the top of the bank. So they'd like to put in stone posts and cedar rails, something that's not pressure treated up there. There is a proposal also for a small sitting area deck near the top of the banking, which is just outside the 50-foot buffer. So it's between 50 and 60 feet from the resource area, which isn't the edge of the pond actually. It's you see there's the top of the inland bank is here, and so there's quite a distance from the actual, the last recorded edge of the pond. It has fluctuated a fair amount in recent years. There is also proposal for wandering from the microphone, but for a stone patio and fire pit just off the back of the deck, which would be about 75 feet from the resource area. So, and that on the mitigation would include protection, erosion protection during construction using straw wattle and silt fencing, and then planting extensively any disturbed areas, including where we've removed the invasives, but also as we work our way up the bank, probably install the steps first and then work our way up to doing the steps and the patio at the top of the banking and the deck at the end. That's the gist of the project. Are there any questions?
Oh, I'm sure there might be a few. Start down that row.
Well, I was glad that you mentioned that there's a wood deck and this stone patio, fire pit, all of that, because when I read what the SE is, it just said something about landscape and a path. and I thought, wait a minute, and then I saw that on your plan. What will the wood deck be made of?
It's proposed to be, they haven't decided on the actual material yet. I think it may be mahogany with cedar posts. And just a backing on two sides, so there would be like a rail. So there's a rail system proposed for the pathway, and the idea is to kind of tie it in with the back of the deck so that they could just sit on a bench and lean against the rail.
And where this wood deck is going, is it currently invasives?
It's pretty. It's not all invasives, but it's under pine trees and it's pretty dense in there. There's a lot of chokecherry.
Are you removing the pine trees?
No,
Okay.
there's kind of an open area and it's a little bit flatter, so you go down a little bit from the top of the banking,
Yeah,
and
it's hard to tell
it's
when I
kind
was
of a
out there.
natural.
Is this deck elevated?
It will be basically sitting on the grade, but it'll be a step up.
Okay. And the stone patio, is that pervious, impervious?
Yeah, so the plan is to have, probably use bluestone, like irregular bluestone with gravel in between and with gaps of 1 to 2 inches. So that, and then there would be a base underneath that of gravel so that water would penetrate through and not cause any erosion.
And between the steps on the path going down to the water, what will be there? Just the fescue or?
It'll be basically like it is now, which is grass,
Yeah.
the fescue grasses.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Okay, for now.
Okay, thank you, please.
I have a question on the deck that Karen was just asking about. It notes clear small trees and brush. What would the small trees be?
Maybe a chokecherry.
Oh, yeah.
It's really not, it's mostly what's hanging into it from a chokecherry that's to the east of that, where it's pretty dense, just beyond it over here. And we're proposing planting a few cedars along this side also, both to soften the visual impact, as well as screening for them. So we'd like to just create a little space for the new plants as well.
Would it be appropriate to ask that the trees that are going to be removed be marked?
Yeah,
In-
nothing,
In the field, or in the plan, you mean?
because nothing was marked that I
Yeah,
saw
no,
out
I
there.
didn't see any markings on,
Would,
especially the trees that are planned to be removed. That would be great if you could
Yes.
do that, please.
Yep.
just following along with that, there were, the locations of the patio and the deck were not staked.
Yeah,
So
nothing.
Nothing was staked. So.
Yes, my apologies for
Okay.
that. Yeah,
So
we were
you're-
planning to submit last month and then had to make changes, and
Okay.
so unfortunately the
Okay, so we'll,
staking
yeah,
got
but you will get
postponed.
that done so that
Yes.
we can see where they are. Okay, thanks. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
That was my one follow-up. Karen hit everything else that I had.
Okay. So your narrative indicates that the area has become engulfed with invasives, is the word that was used. Do you have any idea roughly of what the percentage of the vegetation in this area is now invasive as opposed to?
Maybe, I don't know if it's easier to see on screen here, but this zone that's hatched in red
Yep.
is what's pretty much engulfed right now.
Uh-huh.
So there's a lot of good, I would have proposed removing the whole thing. We would have proposed removing everything on that banking if there wasn't anything positive under there, but there's quite a bit of viburnum, Alex reticillata, winterberry, bayberry, et cetera. So our feeling was to try and extract the invasives from there to let the native shrubs that are there grow.
And do you think it's gonna be possible to do that extraction by hand? As opposed to
I
making
think so. What we suggested in here was we're gonna need a small dingo machine, which is just a 4-foot wide loader that will be able to carry the granite steps down. And so if we needed to, we might put a chain on and pull some of the vines.
Okay,
There's poison ivy in there too, so it'd be nice not to have to completely handle it by hand, but
yeah.
that is our hope, to do it basically all by hand with that assistance only if needed.
Okay, I would, that's certainly preferable to, because the appearance of the small, single split rail fence, that's a protocol we use very often to mark mitigation areas, which made me wonder if this is actually, was originally a mitigation
think it
area
was.
for the construction of the house,
I
which is
think it
why.
was, yeah.
And it's become invaded with these invasives. So, yeah, so there's going to be a lot of good native plantings in there if it was mitigation.
Right.
It would be great to have that restored, so, and doing it by hand would preserve those. So I think the order will say something along those lines, that where possible to do all the removal by hand.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And there's no, there's a, small trees are coming out for the deck. Are there any other trees that are slated
The
for
only other
removal?
trees that were proposed in there were, there's 2 dead pine trees on the west side of the property.
Yep,
And you can see them marked with an X
yeah,
up high here. And the concern is
oh, yeah.
with the height
Oh,
of
there they
those trees, that they might come down into the
Yeah,
pond.
you could see them from the top, from looking
Yeah.
down over there. All right, so they're gonna be coming out. They are dead, they appear to be. Just a point, I noticed that on the coverage calculations on the table, in the submission, something's not quite right. In the outer 50 feet, the area of structures existing is 2,053 and proposed is 80, which, and then a net change of 80. I think somehow that 80 just got written twice, and I was looking on the plan to see if, because often they're on the plan as well, to see if there was a correct number, but my guess is,
I'm sorry, what was the?
it says, in the outer 50, area of structures, decks, dwellings, sheds, existing is 2,053. And proposed says 80. And net change says 80. So what I'm assuming is that the proposed is 2,053 plus 80, whatever that number is, I can't do, 2,100.
Okay, so the square
Right.
footage
It
of
just
the
isn't
house.
right, is it? Yeah, I just wanted,
So we're just adding an 80 square foot deck.
that's what it looks like, yeah.
Yes.
But that patio is 200 and something square feet, so
Wasn't the question whether it's structure or not?
it says,
Or is it coverage?
dwellings, sheds,
Deck.
decks, et cetera. Oh, okay, so the 650 hardscape pools, walkways, the patio is in there.
Right,
Got it. Okay, so just need to correct whatever that number is,
okay,
the 80-foot increase.
okay.
And so just to clarify, in the rear there, along the top where that split rail fence is, there's a lot of grass, sort of lawn, that's all coming out, being replaced with a gravel walkway, and, is that?
Yes, and then additional planting
Okay,
in that area.
and then there's a little, stone wall kind of structure going to go in there in place of the split rail?
Yeah, the wall is actually around the patio.
Oh, that wall,
It's a
okay.
sitting wall
So there's
around
a
the
sitting wall
patio.
around the patio. I'm talking about the gravel path that's going in where.
There's no wall associated with that, it's just the we're,
Oh. Replace
proposing-
existing fence with stone or cedar posts, wood rails.
yeah, so she basically just putting in a new fence made out of, with stone posts and cedar rails. She
Oh,
didn't
oh,
li-
oh, oh,
she
stone
didn't
post,
like
cedar
this-
rails, got it, okay.
Yeah, they weren't fond of the split rail.
Not everybody likes it. Okay.
It was to go, the granite will go with the steps. Keep the
Oh,
look.
okay, all right. All right, thank you very much. That's enough for me for the moment.
All right, actually, I have a concern with the proposal, and that is that you have an existing, was it a second-story deck? Then you have gravel underneath it, which could be sat upon, I guess. Then you're proposing a new patio/fire pit right next to that deck. And then right next to the fire pit patio, you're proposing another deck. And I don't understand the point, purpose, or need for the new deck, which is in a resource area, since it's so close to the sitting area for the fire pit.
I think the topic came up because my client has a difficulty navigating steps, and she probably won't be going all the way down to the pond, but to actually be close enough to enjoy the pond. Wanted to have a place where she could sit up closer to the house.
Would that not be the fire pit patio area?
Yeah, it's close. I see what you mean, but it's pretty dense vegetation, and the trees actually come up in between the two areas. So to avoid having to clear a bunch of vegetation, the idea was just provide a little sitting area off the top of off the pathway. It's a little better vantage point as well too. You can see further up the lake to the west. So I think because there is quite a bit of obstruction, like at the bottom of the banking, there's pussy willows and whatnot that are probably 20 to 25 feet tall in some areas. So it's there are some areas it's not really a panoramic vista kind of thing. So this would give another vantage point to be able to enjoy the pond from.
Is there a view corridor established for this property?
I'm not aware. There is an easement on the west side of the property for abutting.
Butters, yeah.
Yeah, for the abutters, but.
All right, well, I still think it still strikes me as superfluous. I know it's not in the NDZ, which is good, but it's right at the edge of it.
Yes.
And there is vegetation there that's being removed for the deck. You've got a lot of sitting areas there. I just don't get it. So, I guess I will have to say that I'm one vote. I'm only one vote on this commission. But I think I'm going to have to vote against it as proposed. I'm not sure that you'll have a problem with getting approval overall, but I'm just letting you know in advance.
If the deck were out, then you wouldn't have any
Yeah,
objection.
that's the only concern that I have. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought it up, because, and I didn't note, I forgot, I wrote it down in my notes here, what is the point of the deck? And I take your point about a place to sit and view, but I have to say, I think I'm with Bob in saying there's more than adequate space already for it, and since you have to come back anyway and stake it and do a couple of other adjustments, I think we'd ask that you have a word with your client about whether that deck is critical to them, or whether they'd be willing to go without it.
Okay,
I don't know where
All
I'll
right.
end up on it.
I will do
I might
that.
say no. It does seem,
Thoughts?
I agree that you should give it a shot. Me too.
All right, so we're going to continue then, it sounds like. When would that be? Have comments-
January 4th.
Okay. Is that too soon, too far?
Sure, no, that should be fine.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Do you want copies of the certified receipts? We had to
We
send out
have it.
we sent out a second batch
Oh,
because of the hearing tape.
Yeah, that's of lesser concern, I think, for us.
If you could just
No.
drop them off
Nikki wants
upstairs.
it.
Okay,
Yep.
sure.
Yeah.
Thanks, Nikki.
We have to then make a motion.
Oh, right, so sorry. I'm not used to
You're not
this
used to
job. I don't usually, I'll make a motion to continue 33 John Gilpin Lane to January 4th.
Latin second.
Roll call vote, Janet.
Aye.
Elise.
Aye.
Aaron.
Aye.
Mary. Aye. And I vote aye. All right, thank you. We'll see you then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next notice of intent is 105 Woodcarver Knoll, William and Perry Stopera, map 11D, parcel F11, SE10 3598, construction of a window well, cantilevered fireplace, and covered entry.
Good afternoon, David Clark, Clark Engineering. Also here is Paul Muldoon, who is the architect and project manager for the Stoperas. Normally, we would file a request for determination for a project of this magnitude, but we felt that the commission would want to have conditions to deal with the mitigation that's required. It's a very simple project. They're proposing a window well to allow more light to a basement space. Adjacent to that is a cantilevered fireplace, and then on the upland side of the house, they're reconfiguring the front entry where there was going to be a little bit more roofed area and an expanded stoop. So all the work is within 100 feet of the coastal bank to Oyster Pond. It's really the only resource area that's impacted. We feel we're sufficiently far away from the salt marsh, and also that the building itself is between the activity and the salt marsh. So we feel there'll be no adverse impact to any resource area, and the mitigation that's proposed will compensate for the loss of the small amount of lawn area.
Okay,
So if
thank
there's
you.
any questions, we have an answer.
Questions? Anybody? I do have one, since everyone's looking down. When I was there, it struck me as an odd place for the mitigation. You know, it's basically in a lawned area, when there looked to be an area between the deck and the resource area. There's grass down there. There's a grassed area, as I recall. And so if the mitigation were there, it would be adjacent to the resource area. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are about
You want to
that.
address it? Paul Muldoon
Okay.
prepared the mitigation plan.
Good afternoon, Paul Muldoon, Muldoon Architects. We place the plantings where they are because it's in the area where we'll be disturbing. So we're directly adjacent to where the construction will take place. And there happens to be an existing planting bed nearby that will generally be extended with our proposed planting bed and create a buffer between the neighboring property and our work.
Right. I understand that reasoning, but from an ecological perspective, and looking at it only from an ecological perspective, it seems to me that it would do more good if it were close to the resource area rather than basically acting as another planting bed, you know. So that was my thought. In fact, I think that was my only thought. Otherwise, yes, it is a small-scale project, and so anyway, I'll leave it to my colleagues to ask their questions. Anybody?
I don't have anything.
I just have one question on the coverage calculations on the site plan. It has in the 0 to 50, it has the existing dwelling decreasing from 1618 square feet to 1591. Is that?
Yes, I was confused by that till Wendy explained it to me. The existing small covered entry is being removed, and so we're showing that being removed, and then it's being replaced by the larger covered entry.
Uh-huh.
So overall,
That gives you a net decrease?
no. There's a net increase. as you'll see up in the upper right is the building coverage calculation. You'll see that there's a 70 square foot increase. So when we say existing structure to remain of 1591, there is 27 square feet, which is that existing covered entryway that's going to be removed, but it's going to be replaced with 27 square feet. That's part of the new front entry, if that makes sense.
And that 27 is in,
Yes, so you see the proposed addition, 70 square feet.
oh, there it is, okay. Okay,
27 square feet of that 70 square feet is the replacement structure.
okay. I just,
No, it had to be explained to me.
yeah, okay, I'm glad, because I scratched my head and said, I don't get it. So is there a kind of random coastal bank on the other side of the street? Is that-
Yes. We didn't locate it in its entirety, but there's a low area on the west side of that road, and it comes up, there's a bank, or I think it was fill from when the road was constructed, and it continues further north.
But it technically qualifies because of the slope?
Yes.
Huh,
Yeah.
okay.
We don't show it in its entirety because we figured we're already in the no disturb zone of the other coastal bank. It's just going to be overlapping lines.
Double NDZ.
Yeah,
Well, that's what, yeah,
Double
the way
NDZ.
that the red NDZ line
yeah.
loops up, over, and
Yeah,
then
we-
back again was what
yeah.
got my attention
Yeah.
with that. Okay. That's it.
So I guess I didn't hear anybody echoing my concern about the mitigation spot. No issues for anyone? Okay.
Is what it is.
It-
I see that it's gonna be a boundary area.
Yeah,
It's native, so.
and we typically want those adjacent to resource areas, so anyway. Also, Muldoon, now I get what, there's an M on the planning plan, I guess, and I didn't know what it represented. Might be a good idea to have more than just an M, because one of my questions was, who's doing the, who
Oh,
did
who's
this?
actually doing the work?
Who did the design?
Oh,
There's an M in the upper corner,
Yeah, an M.
Muldoon Architects next to it.
Okay, I just,
Yeah.
all right, you see, is it there? Okay, I
Yeah.
just didn't see it, okay,
Understood.
yeah. Okay, so, looks like I'm the only one with that particular concern, so other than that, I guess we don't have any requested changes for this.
Nope. Then I'll make a motion to continue 105 Woodcarver Knoll to the work session on January 25th for an order of conditions.
Latin second.
Oh, I'm sorry, before we go, in the mitigation bed, can we demarcate it some way, other than with the steel edging? In other words, if it's gonna be out there in that lawn area, can we demarcate it so that people know that it's not,
We'll put that in order.
yeah, we can handle it that way, we'll just,
we want to see stones or some type of marker or one rail post or rail fence or something like that.
Stone would be great.
yeah, just something to indicate that it's special, it's not just another planting bed.
Understood.
It's something that needs to stay there and remain there and remain native, you
Understood.
know, yeah. Okay, where were we?
So
You
you
had motioned.
have to call, it was seconded.
Okay, all right, roll call vote, Janet,
Aye.
Elise,
Aye.
Aaron,
Aye.
Mary. Aye. And I vote aye. All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, the next notice of intent is 86 Meadowview Road South, Brett and Elizabeth Joseph, map 10D, parcel S14, SE103596, construction of access stairs over a coastal bank and driveway expansion.
Good evening, David Clark, Clark Engineering. I believe somebody's on the line from Sudbury Design. But anyways, on behalf of the Joseph family, this is primarily a landscape project. They're looking to get access to the association dock, which is towards the south end of this property. So the coastal bank is shown on the plan where we're proposing at-grade steps, creating a path to get from the dwelling down to the bottom of the bank, and between the bottom of the bank and the pier, or the dock system and bulkhead, there's an access roadway to the abutting property to the west. So the project is separated from the resource areas, other than the coastal bank, by that roadway. Sudbury's plan shows extensive amount of planting along the bank and on the bank as mitigation for the stairway. The second portion of the project is to reconstruct the entry on the upland side of the house to the front door. As you see, if you've been out to the site, there's a substantial grade change from the parking area up to the front door. They're proposing to change all that. There is some hardscape there now. They're just basically reconfiguring it. And they're asking to construct two, or extend the driveway adjacent to the garage to provide 2 more parking spaces. The plan also shows a lot more work going outside the 100-foot buffer, but that's all on the downslope out to Meadowbrook View Road. Be happy to answer any questions. This does have to go to Zoning Board of Appeals because it is a stairway and within the Coastal Conservancy District. I don't know when that's been scheduled for.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Just while that.
Go ahead.
No, well, just out of curiosity, because when we visit these sites where there are structures in the NDZ, I just always want to know whether or not they were ever approved. I'm talking about the little round patio and the steps to it.
As far back as I can see on Google Earth, it's been there.
It's
I
been
mean,
there.
this residence has been there since the 60s, I believe, early
Okay,
60s.
all right. I just have to ask. This is a path down to, we know that the regs allow a path to water, although this, you could argue this is or isn't a path to water, I suppose. It goes down to a road, which then goes to, or what, they have access to the association there.
Yes, they had the deeded rights to use the facility, yes.
Yeah, okay.
The other option was to construct elevated stairway, and we didn't feel that this was an appropriate place for it wasn't quite, it's too steep for a path, and I don't think it's steep enough for an elevated stairway.
For a stairway, yeah. Okay. So the only other, there's a fair amount of invasives on the bank.
No.
There aren't? Okay.
In looking at Google Earth, I did notice that 10 or so plus years ago, it looked like the bank was completely stripped of vegetation and replanted. There's nothing on record in the chain of title for this property where an order of conditions was issued. I did find that as mitigation for work on the dock, restoration was done on the adjacent coastal bank. So work was done on this property, but the property was not included in the notice of intent, is what I could figure. That's why I don't think you see any invasives on that bank, in that it was redone a decade plus ago, and so the Sudbury plan just is enhancing what's there now.
Okay. because my normal question is, how do you protect? I couldn't tell because it's all dead right now, so I'll take your word for it. The question is always how to protect these areas from adjacent mitigation, but if you're saying it's clean or relatively clean, then that's comforting.
No.
Anybody else?
The path, I know it's pea stone or something, and then there's landscape timber steps. What kind of landscape timber?
So there would be treated timbers,
So treated steps?
yep.
We usually have a problem with that.
You're concerned about the use of treated lumber?
The use of treated lumber, usually we're not keen on that. I don't know if this is a different situation, it's not going down to water, but, everywhere else, we say we don't want treated wood.
Yeah, the ideal material would be, stone of some kind, but this is relatively far away from water, so.
Typically, concerns about leaching is when the product is in contact with water.
Yeah. That's why I was saying, I don't know if this is different. I mean, does water, if it rains, it goes downhill.
It does. I assume you're not going to use, you're going to use approved treated, you would use approved treated lumber rather than the,
Yes, and
The
I
previously bad
get the
stuff.
two confused all the time.
Yeah, I do too.
But
Yeah.
I'm
I was
sure
hoping
it'll
you
be
were
struggling
written
to
properly.
I was
Remember,
hoping that you could remember for us, but
ACs,
ACQ, ACC, whatever.
Yeah.
We have standard conditions that you won't use the bad stuff.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
no bad stuff.
So we'll cover ourselves.
Yes.
As far as that.
Yeah, I know the
I
bad
guess-
stuff's not even available in small
Yeah.
dimensional stuff anymore,
Yeah.
because
Okay.
of so many bans on it.
Okay. Anything else? Sounds like we're
I think
we're not going to ask for any changes to this.
All right, in that case, I will make a motion to continue 86 Meadowview Road South to the work session on January 25th for an order of conditions.
Latin second.
We'll call vote. Janet?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Wherever you are, Mary.
I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can
Yes.
hear you. You sound far away, though.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, next up, we have a notice of intent for 10 Smith Street, Lindsay and Cynthia Barrick, map 10D, parcel D97, in the local, it's a local only, N2263 is the permit number, landscape restoration and tree removal.
David Clark, Clark Engineering, and Teresa Sprague from Blue Flax Design, on behalf of the owners of 10 Smith Street. Since this is entirely a restoration project, I'm going to let Teresa do all the talking.
Okay, thanks. Good afternoon. Again, Teresa Sprague with Blue Flax Design here on behalf of the Barrick family, who owns the property at 10 Smith Street. As David pointed out, this is really a restoration, invasive species management restoration project. The project in total proposes to remove 840 square feet of existing asphalt driveway that's located within the 50 to 100-foot buffer zone to the isolated vegetated wetland, and replace that asphalt driveway area with a fescue clover seed mix. Additionally, we're proposing to remove approximately 5,700 square feet of invasive vegetation within the wetland resource area itself and the adjacent upland resource area. The invasive vegetation proposed to be removed includes one Norway maple tree, as well as bittersweet, phragmites, shrub honeysuckle, and porcelain berry located within this area. The vegetation would be removed, the area will be seeded, and the slopes blanketed with 100% biodegradable erosion control blanket. The area will be, in addition to removing the invasive vegetation, there's an area of previously dumped vegetation, so cuttings and vegetation debris that had been dumped down that slope into that area. So that will also be removed from the site. After one season of follow-up management, we would plant the area with a total of 9 trees and 124 native shrubs. There's a bare area at the top of the slope that currently does not really support any vegetation. We would propose to bring in just a couple of inches of a 50-50 mix of compost loam and then seed that area to get some fescue microclover grass restored in that area. There's an arrow showing that on the plan, so that existing area would be top dressed and then seeded with a fescue microclover mix. Overall, I think the vegetation, as far as restoration vegetation, we're proposing a mix of amelanchier, eastern red cedar, and an eastern redbud tree, along with summer sweet, dwarf bush honeysuckle, winterberry holly, swamp azalea, fragrant sumac, and arrowwood viburnum. We will require temporary irrigation for the first 2 to 3 growing seasons, and then all the irrigation would be removed from that area. So I'm happy to answer any questions about the project. I think it's pretty straightforward.
All right, thank you, Teresa. Anybody want to start on this? No? Okay, well, okay, I have a question or two. Yeah, it's quite a nice restoration project. Is the restoration essentially being done to the limit of the property lines in the resource area on three sides?
It is, yes. We're going right down to the edge of the property line on the south, the east, and the west.
So are you concerned, I assume that there's invasives all through the resource area.
There are particularly Phragmites reed is located within that isolated wetland where the groundwater level is particularly high. So keeping the Phragmites reed from kind of pushing back in, if we can't manage it off-site, is going to be difficult. But we think it's worth giving it a shot.
Is that what we're doing? We're giving it a shot?
Well, I mean, I think unfortunately we can't manage invasive vegetation that's off property. So
Yeah, right.
Ideally, we would like to remove the Phragmites reed from the entire area. But without the homeowners, neighboring abutters' permission,
All
we
getting
can't do that.
together and
Yeah,
having a joint
exactly.
project.
So one of the things that we find often happens with a project like this is that once we do the initial invasive species management, abutters see what's going on, they ask what's going on, and they say, oh, we'd like to do that too. So ideally, that would be how this would proceed.
Right. Well, and you could always reach out to them at the stage of the game. You know.
Exactly, yes.
But other than Phragmites, though, or I assume there are other invasives.
There are other invasives. I think we've got some photographs that show, and again, these are photographs that were taken earlier this summer that show the extent of the vegetation. The majority of it is on the slope leading down to that isolated wetland, and then once we get into that isolated wetland area, with the exception of the Phragmites, if you look on page 5, on the top right-hand photograph, we're standing at the top of that slope looking south. So you see that the bittersweet and the porcelain berry is really intensely infested on the slope itself. And then once you get down into that wetland area, it's Phragmites reed. And then beyond that, it opens up to the property that's sort of to the south and the east behind it, where I think they may be managing their property, and I don't know. So that, but it's a little more open. And less invaded in that area.
Teresa, are you referring to, is there a land management plan?
Oh, I'm sorry, there is a land management
Aha.
plan associated with this. I'm sorry. On
Yeah,
page-
no, you have it, I don't.
Yeah, I don't have it either. But that's,
It's not, we don't have digital copies. I thought there might be, I was wondering.
this sort of thing happens. The
Oh,
paper
okay.
people.
I'd be happy to pass
Or,
this around to take a look. It's a copy of
Oh,
mine.
sure, that might be useful for 2 of us here.
So is this a good candidate for a mow strip around the edges for monitoring for
We could
creeping
definitely,
invasives coming back in?
do that. I guess obviously we don't want to continue to disturb the wetland resource area itself. So we would not be regularly going into the wetland area, resource area itself and mowing regularly. But we could certainly create a strip around that area. Just because it's standing water, basically, in that area, it's difficult to mow.
Yeah.
Is there another way we could protect it with this, all this work? You know, it seems,
I mean, as part of our land management plan, we build in ongoing management. So there's the initial 3-year management, and then we do propose to continue to do follow-up monitoring and management as necessary ongoing. So that is built into our land management plan and would be referenced in the order of conditions. So even after we receive a certificate of compliance, it's usually very minimal at this point, but we're going out, monitoring it, and then if we do spot, there's an opportunity for us to hand pull or selectively treat as necessary.
Right, yeah. It would seem to be almost essential for this type of project to forever have it taken care of.
It is, and particularly in such a highly developed area with a lot of different surrounding properties. So there's, we're abutted, we've got properties on all sides of us here in this location.
Otherwise, it's maybe, money
Poorly spent.
poorly spent.
Exactly. So no, and so in our experience, especially where this is a voluntary project, this is not a mitigation project. The property owners are coming forward and just want to improve the property.
Certainly appreciate.
Yep.
We're trying to think of ways to
No, I'm saying
maximize the
their
success.
investment is, it's not something that's being required. It's something that they want to
Yes.
invest in and do. So it's in their best interest to maintain it.
Yes, that is true. They're taking out the driveway and just replacing it with or clover or something. They're not, is that?
Part of the driveway.
It's part of the driveway. Yep, it's just a part of driveway that's not being used.
Oh, I
And
see.
it's old macadam asphalt, so they just would like to remove
They're
that.
just
The
not-
driveway
they don't need
leading-
that area for
They don't
driveway.
need that
Okay,
area.
okay.
Exactly.
Got it. All right, well, Janet.
This brings up a question that I've been wanting to ask for a long time, and I haven't, but I noticed it in the notes too, and I know we've got a big thing today, but if you can tell me in a minute or less.
Sure.
When you refer to invasive vegetation will be removed and appropriately disposed of off-site, how do you dispose of invasive vegetation?
So we bring it to a composting facility where it's being broken down, but it's not being resold to the public as compost. So we're not bringing it to the local landfill. We're bringing it to different facilities where it is being composted, but it's not being resold to the public as material that's going to be respread someplace else.
What do they do with it? And
To be honest, I will have to get an answer for that to that question for you.
because I mean, there's seed banks and there's a lot of things in there that would make it not particularly usable for.
Well, and the problem is that if it's not composted properly, so if with weed seed and a lot of the and seed from even like bittersweet, if it's composted properly and the pile's heated to the temperature it's supposed to be heated at, that will break it down. The one thing that, and that's one of the issues that we find, is that it's just not composted. You just pile it up, but it has to be turned, you have to manage it. And then the second thing is Japanese knotweed is all bets are off when it comes to knotweed.
Yep.
So if we have an opportunity the one thing that we're finding is that the root material, the live root material will spread, but the cut material, so like the stuff that's on the ground this winter that's already died back, that will not cause an issue with it will not spread. It will just biodegrade and it won't spread from that. Pieces of root material, if you're grubbing Japanese knotweed out, will spread. And that's why we really manage Japanese knotweed with a selective systemic herbicide. It's really the only way to do it properly.
Thank you. I've been wanting to know about that. And if you get an answer about I'd love to hear that.
I'm going to dig deep into that, yes.
It'd be a good field trip for us. Let's go see one of these.
Yeah,
All right.
that would be
It
interesting.
would be good. With that, I'll make a motion to continue 10 Smith Street to the work session on January 25th for an order of conditions.
Latin second.
Roll call vote, Janet.
Aye.
Elise.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, just give me a heads up if anyone's ready for a break at any point.
No,
Or
we can't, we
can
can't
keep
take
going.
it. We can't.
No breaks
We don't have time for a break.
All right, we'll keep going.
Moving on.
Working us hard.
7 Easy Street, Joseph and Jean Nocera, map 12M, parcel 9, SC 103597, demo of existing dwelling and construction of a new dwelling.
Good afternoon, David Clark, Clark Engineering. On behalf of the Noceras, I believe someone's on the line from Wilkinson Ecological. So this is a demo rebuild of a house that's in the floodplain off of Fox Hill Road and Easy Street. We tried to get the house as far away from the resource area as possible, but we're up against setbacks to existing septic system and the street. So basically, we're putting the house right back where the existing house is. There is an expansion, but it's all outside the 100-foot buffer from the wetland that's on the north end of the property. None of the expansion is within the floodplain. The house will be constructed on a FEMA-compliant foundation, which means that the Noceras no longer have a basement when this project is done, so they're losing all that space. This does have to go to the zoning board of appeals, obviously, being a non-conforming lot. There is no change in the site coverage. Made a conscious effort to keep things the way they are, just reconfiguring it to suit the owner's needs in the reconstruction project. That being said, we are providing mitigation, and it's primarily restoration of the NDZ, which doesn't have any structures now, but there is, I believe, some invasive species in there that will be taken care of. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, David. Anyone? I can start. The mitigation area, its shape and size, its shape, I guess, and location is what I meant to say. It was chosen. Why was that location and shape chosen? I
Well,
guess?
again, no mitigation is required because we're not increasing.
That is true. That is
So if somebody's,
Yes, if I
Yeah,
may,
there we go.
excuse me. Through the chair, for the record, this is Ian Peach from Wilkinson Ecological Design. So we have 2,500 square feet proposed, and the reference to the area is first of all based off where we find which is often true, the edge of a wood line, where we find the densest and most intense encroachment of the invasive plant species we're proposing to manage. So really the shape was mainly drawn off of that, and it's pretty logical. There is existing canopy around the wetland on both sides, so it's where those light pockets are, where that edge condition is, where we have the invasive plants that we'll be replacing with the 40 native shrubs and a rejuvenated seeded native grass layer.
Okay, so it was not random, it was a conscious decision. That's largely what I was trying to figure out. Would it need protection from, I don't know how would you characterize the invasive situation surrounding this area?
Yep. It really is, the biggest way to characterize it is kind of east-west. The western side is much less invaded. The eastern side is much more. So it's not the same condition as far as if you're talking on that wetland side of our proposed area of work. If you were thinking of a mow strip or something, it's kind of different east to west. But it really, the amount of area we're proposing work, we think is really going to protect that resource area adequately by the scale that we've proposed and the methods we'll use.
Okay. So you don't think it needs, you think you'll survive?
I do, and especially, with our methods and at this scale and the visibility and the way to get in there, I'm not concerned about losing track or encroachment. I think we can really do a real enhanced benefit and then set in motion a state where it's just a follow-up invasive plant management.
Okay. Will there be, this may not be your area, but will there be foundation plants for this rebuilt house in the resource area?
Again, you're correct, this is not my area. I have not seen any proposed new additions to plantings in the resource area, but I do not know for sure. We were just focused, within that restoring of the no disturb zone with the invasive plants and the native plantings.
I did bring that up with the homeowners.
Okay.
So at this time, they're not proposing any foundation plantings within the buffer zone to the vegetated wetland or within the floodplain. They will have some foundation plantings on the upland side of the house, but again, that'll be outside the floodplain and outside the 100-foot buffer.
Okay.
So they haven't developed a landscape plan, but they're fully aware that if they do any foundation plantings within the buffer zone, they need to present it to the commission.
Yeah, or another way we could handle it, I guess, is in the order of conditions to say that whatever, the foundation plans need to be X% native. And
That would-
we've done something like that, I
Okay.
think, in the past. That would save you coming back.
If we do that, don't we also say that it has to be approved by Nikki?
We could do that, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And,
that would be
you know-
Since they're not on the current plan, it should be approved by somebody.
Right.
That's fine.
Anybody else? Just making a few notes here. All right. So, we can't say a whole lot because, one more question. Lawn in the resource area.
So whatever lawn's there now, they're going to maintain as lawn. So we show the limit of the tree line on the north end of the property, and it's pretty much all Cape Cod lawn,
Okay.
all around the house. I don't believe they intend to
Turf
put
it.
in a turf lawn,
Yeah.
because we know that is something that'll probably be prohibited in the order.
Okay, right. Yeah, so if we would just say
Maintain a Cape Cod
maintain
lawn.
Cape Cod lawn, yeah.
Yeah.
And everybody's happy.
Okay. So with that, I'll move that 7 Easy Street be continued to the work session on January 25th for an order of conditions.
Latin second.
Roll call vote, Janet.
Aye.
Elise.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Thank you
David.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next order of conditions is 32 and 34 Old Salt Works Road, James and Jennifer Mock, parcel 13L, map 13L, parcels 1C32 and 1C31. Proposed coastal stairway replacement and bunker repairs.
Who's here? Maybe.
There he is.
Oh, there he is. All right.
Oh, you ended that quickly.
See, moving through.
For the record, Sean Riley, Coastal Engineering, representing the applicant at Old Salt Works Road. Just share my screen. We're here before you today for really some maintenance and cleanup of existing stair and deck. Access stair out to the beach has reached its service life, so we're looking to replace that stair essentially in kind, same location, same dimensions, and we provided you with a detail that showed the stair configuration, 3'6" wide overall width, with using diamond pier anchors at the top, bottom, with one at the midpoint. So a typical beach access stair that we've used in the past. We just finished the, Crawford Land Management just finished the shorefront stabilization with the fiber roll array on the entire length of the shorefront. So we're, there isn't a lot of, this isn't a V zone, but there isn't a lot of hard action in this area. You can see by the photo of the pillbox that actually the door of the pillbox is still sitting there. It looks like it's been on the ground for decades and hasn't floated away. So there really isn't a lot of wave action, although it is mapped in a V zone for that perfect storm event. Also, as part of this, we're looking to repair the upper deck of the pillbox that was part of the Naval Air Station back in the early 1900s. It's a remnant of that. They're looking to continue to use it as a storage area for kayaks and other beach stuff, chairs, and in season. Off season, they'll obviously pull everything out of there and store it up in their garage. But essentially just replacing the upper deck on that structure. You can see it's in severe disrepair. And we provided you with a detail of the construction materials for that deck reconstruction. Same location, same shape, with a new railing and new floor joists and decking. And that's about it. With that, I'll open it up to any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. Anybody? Yeah.
Does historical have to approve this little decking being done? Because is the naval thing a historic?
Is it a historic structure?
I don't know.
That is a very interesting question. I don't know that it does because it's not habitable space, but we will be required to get it is definitely historic. So when we apply for a building permit, we'll find out if we need to get historic approval, I guess. I know we've already reached out to zoning, and they felt that this is a maintenance of the existing structures.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not required to go to zoning for either of these. We've already checked with them.
Okay. I remember when this project came to us a couple of years ago, this is the house with the giant tree, right, that we went around and around about?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
But there wasn't any discussion of the pillbox then.
There wasn't. I think it was behind. It wasn't part of the bigger discussion. There was more focus on everything that was being redeveloped on the property, and that's where everybody's focus was.
Yeah.
We had mentioned the replacement of the stair, and it was something that they, at that point, didn't want to entertain and look at. They wanted to see how the coastal bank stabilization project came out, and they're very happy with that. So that's why we're here before you with these two last pieces.
Yeah. As I remember, the house was retreated.
It did.
Due to concerns about, climate change, sea level rise, and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But is there a similar concern about this structure?
No, there isn't. This was, as I said, this is a concrete structure that was built in the early 1900s. It's the same era and makeup as the property down the end that was the old seaplane platform, the Seldorf property. And all of that has withstood the stand of time, and they'll probably be replacing this house before that pillbox goes away, in 50 years. So, well, hopefully this house lasts 50 years the way that the people replace houses these days. So there is no real concern about this concrete pillbox going anywhere.
Okay, it's not going to be beefed up structurally or?
No, it is not.
Okay.
No, just replacing the deck on top.
All right. When would you say the deck was last a deck?
When it was last replaced,
Well, when was it last used as a deck? You may not know, but, you know, it looks like,
I don't know. I mean, it's got roofing and, you know, I really couldn't answer that question.
okay, all right. I'm just trying to figure out whether it's a pre-existing structure or whether it's aged out, you know. Okay. So you'll store things in it, but take them out in the winter?
Take them out in the winter. Obviously, we don't want to leave anything in there that, you know, should there be a storm event, you know, you'd end up losing what's in there. So it's not,
Because it doesn't have a door.
it's going to have a door.
It is going to have a
but
door,
Even
okay.
that, even so, it is going to have a door that's going to replace it that would be bolted in to that location to provide security for whatever they keep in there during the summer. But everything inside would be, you know, removed, and it could be a condition that everything be removed in the off season and stored out. You could even say stored outside of the buffer because the garage on the property is outside of the buffer.
Okay, yeah. I think that's a good idea. Okay.
Are you going to be doing any refacing to the outside of the pillbox?
So there's going to be a parging, basically just a concrete parging that's on the face of the pillbox, and that's called out on the detail. So essentially all they're going to do is just clean up. It's going to be a concrete parge that's just going to adhere right to the outside face of the pillbox, really to just clean up the aesthetic of it.
Okay. That was
But
a,
it would be concrete.
that was a new word for me, so thank you for that. I'd not heard the
Yep.
word parge.
Yep.
Okay. Anyone else? Doesn't look like it. So therefore,
Okay. So with that, I'll make a motion to continue 32 and 34 Old Salt Works Road to the work session January 25th for an order of conditions.
Latin second.
roll call vote. Janet,
Aye.
Elise,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
and I vote aye. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
We will when today is over. Should we?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Water was empty.
Water, yeah. Janet wants a break, so we're going to we'd like to take a break till 3 perhaps?
Yeah.
Is this a good 6, 7 minutes?
Unfortunately, I have to leave at 3, so
Okay.
I'm just going to sign off
We'll
now.
say
And,
farewell. All right. All right.
All
Happy,
right,
happy
thank
trails
you.
wherever you are.
All right, Crystal, just
perfect.
please note that Mary left at 2:50-ish.
Right.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Okay.
Sugar, shut the valve.
Oh, we're on the air, okay, so we can start.
Okay, we are.
Did you pull the doors closed, somebody? All right. Nikki, are you back?
Yep, we're ready to go.
Okay, yeah.
Great. The next one is 127 Stage Harbor Road, Anthony and Susan Probst Grimm, map 14D, parcel 14B, removal of existing dwelling and construction of a new dwelling, including removal, replacement of existing hardscaping, replacement of existing lawn with native mitigation plantings.
Good afternoon, Russ Holden from Ryder and Wilcox, and Teresa Sprague from Blue Flax will be joining me. As noted, the project consists of the removal of an existing dwelling and hardscape and the construction of a new dwelling with patio. Also, a portion of the existing paved driveway east of the dwelling will be removed and a proposed reconfigured paved driveway will be constructed. In your packet is an 11 by 17 sketch plan that details in color what is being removed and what is being constructed. The property is subject to a coastal bank as defined by the 100-year flood zone elevation 12 and adjacent upland resource area, or ORA. Regarding the ORA, there is a reduction of 27 square feet proposed within the 0 to 50 foot buffers, and an increase of coverage within the 50 to 100 foot buffers of 826 square feet. Referring to Blue Flax design planting plan, there is proposed 3,786 square feet of mitigation. The mitigation also creates a reduction in lawn from 10,084 to 6,298 square feet. The proposed top of foundation will be approximately 10 inches higher in elevation, necessitating a minor change in grade around the dwelling. There will be no effect of the slope, soils, drainage, groundwater flow, or depth of the groundwater. The proposed dwelling has been located as far from the coastal bank as possible while still complying with the zoning setback requirements. As located, there will be proposed 770 square feet of dwelling within the 0 to 50 foot buffer as opposed to 1,233 square feet of existing dwelling. This is a reduction of 463 square feet of building within the 0 to 50 foot buffers. The proposed dry laid stone patio does extend beyond the dwelling, but this creates a defined sitting entertainment area and aids in confining outdoor activities and provides ease of access from the interior living spaces. The limit of work, a fabric silt fence, will be located and staked and maintained throughout construction. All demolition material will be placed directly into trucks and removed from site. Throughout construction, all debris shall be replaced in dumpsters or other suitable containers, and the site shall be cleaned on a daily basis. The proposed work does not impair the physical stability of the bank, nor groundwater and surface water qualities. The work will not have an adverse impact on significant or active nesting or breeding sites for wildlife. The project will not have any adverse effect or identified habitat of rare or endangered species. I finished my presentation. I don't know if you want to hear from Teresa first, or?
You have something to present, or?
I just maybe a couple of small things to add about this site. So as Russ pointed out, we're proposing to remove about 3,700 square feet of existing turf lawn and replant with native vegetation. A couple of really key features on this site are some very large existing trees. And they are very important to the property owners, and maintaining those trees and the health of those trees is very important. So we've got a number of elm trees and then one incredibly impressive linden tree located just to the north of the dwelling. In looking at that, the existing brick patio is currently over the roots of that linden tree. We have developed a tree protection plan in consultation with our arborist that we will be providing to the commission. It was not prepared in time for presentation today, but protecting this tree during the deconstruction of the house and the reconstruction, particularly of the driveway, is very sensitive around the root system of this tree. But it's very important to the property owners that this tree is protected. So we have an extensive tree protection plan that we'll be putting into place and submitting to you as well. I think the biggest thing that I wanted to talk about here is there's a couple of things going on, and one of them is the views into this property. So this is a very heavily traveled area, a lot of people walking. So we were we try to be very thoughtful about balancing the restoration of native vegetation and mitigation, along with some of the aesthetic components that we know are important, curb appeal, basically, because this is a highly visible site. So we are proposing a low 8-inch deep, just about a foot high, 18 inches high, dry laid stone wall to separate the mitigation planting area and sort of define that space a little bit. We do have some non-native ornamental plantings that we're proposing in here, a total of 9% of the entire replanting, all located up in that planting bed that's closest to the house. And then there's a small herb garden that we're proposing at the property owner's request near the patio, directly around the house. They do have a couple of existing non-native trees, in addition to those elm trees and the linden tree, that have strong sentimental value to them that they would like to keep. One is a hinoki cypress and one is a golden larch. Those trees are non-native, but they are non-invasive, so we would like to keep those trees. They're located along the edge of the driveway. The area directly underneath the elms, obviously deeply shaded. Turf lawn would be removed, and we're proposing a hay-scented fern sod to fill in that area and create a mass of native vegetation that will be very shade tolerant underneath those elm trees. There is a very minor invasive vegetation on this site, some burning bush and multiflora rose along with English ivy that will be removed. And then there's a lot of non-native and simply overgrown and vegetation in poor health, including double file viburnums, forsythia, an English yew, and a lot of lily of the valley, which we'd be proposing to remove and replace with native vegetation. I think the only other main component is there's an existing arbor that enters into the property from the street. It's in poor condition. We're proposing to remove that entirely. So the arbor would be removed from the edge of the roadway. So I think that covers what we're proposing as far as native vegetation, and as well as some of the ornamental vegetation that we're proposing up around the house. I know the percent of that ornamental vegetation is important for your consideration, so we've kept it at 9% of the total vegetation. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Teresa. Just to be clear, the area that you're talking about where the non-natives will go, it's against the house?
It is.
Okay.
Yes, correct.
It's not the area where the herbs are?
We're not counting any, we do have the English lavender, that's what we're counting. So that herb
Oh, I
garden at the
see.
southwest corner is some thyme, lavender, sage, rosemary, oregano, so we're counting that. And then there are some hydrangeas along the eastern side, the entrance on the eastern side from the driveway. We're proposing a couple of hydrangeas and some crystal fairy roses that were a particular request of the property owners between the house and the driveway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does this project need other approvals? And I'm wondering about historic in particular.
I don't know about that, but it either has gone or it's going before ZBA. Bill Riley's dealing with that.
But you don't know about historic?
No.
I think this was discussed at the last historic meeting. I don't know what the conclusion was, but
I would assume that it would be of concern, of interest to them. So certainly a historic house in an historic location, in a historic zone, I think, so. I would hope you check that
Yeah, we'll look into that.
before we go too far down this road. Anybody have questions, burning questions? Otherwise, I'll
Kick it off.
drone on for a while. On the other side of the road, there's some stairs, modest stairs going down to the beach. Is that, anybody know anything about that? Is that a licensed thing or just been there forever? It's just outside the scope of your concern in
It
reality?
is.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I didn't see any other stairs like that along that area, along the beach there. But it does look like it's been there a while. Actually, I don't have, I mean, when it's all said and done, other than those herbs, will there be any non-native, and the required hydrangeas along the back of the house, will there be any non-natives?
No, just
Okay.
those species, like I said, less than 9%.
There are oak leaf hydrangeas that aren't native.
So oak leaf hydrangea is native to eastern North America, but
Right.
not native to Barnstable County. This is
Right.
true. So there are some oak leaf hydrangeas. They are in the planting bed up closest to the house,
Correct.
not within the mitigation area. I think in total, the mitigation that is required is 882 square feet, and we're providing 3,700. So yes, I will admit and agree with you that oak leaf hydrangeas are not native to Barnstable County, but we have been planting them. They do provide wildlife habitat value, they provide pollinator value, so.
Oh, no, I love them, and
Yeah.
there are only 8, so
Yes.
it's
Oh,
not.
I personally consider them to be
Native-ish.
pretty native, yeah, pretty native.
Yes,
Not
More than other
officially.
species of
yes.
hydrangea.
The mid-Atlantic
Yeah.
region,
And
they're
they're very
native to
dark
that
brown.
region.
Well, they're not,
Yeah, we plant them. And they do great. So, yeah, so other than, the hexagonal structure, that is a fire pit? It wasn't entirely clear to me.
It's part of the patio with
part-
there is a fire pit on it.
It's a patio / fire pit. Okay.
Right, it's part of the patio, and then on that section, I guess they will have some type of fire pit.
Okay. I don't think it was, all right, it wasn't labeled in all places, so that's fine. And you said the house is going to be 10 inches higher?
Right now, it sits on the ground,
Yeah.
so what they'll do is raise it 10 inches.
10 inches,
And then
okay.
there'll be filling of about 2 or 3 inches around the foundation to give the required 6 to 8 inches of exposure.
Okay.
So it's a minimal amount of regrading just around the house.
Any chance at all, I mean, I'll ask the question, that the driveway could be pervious?
We would have to pick that up with the owner.
Be nice.
We did talk about the driveway, particularly as you go up the slope. We weren't sure that it made sense necessarily to change that to a gravel driveway so it would migrate, but we certainly talked about the driveway on the east side of the house, and particularly as it wraps around near that linden tree being pervious, so that we're doing our best to protect that linden tree root system, allowing water to percolate through.
So you talked about it,
I don't know if there was any further discussion with Ryder and Wilcox. That was the discussion that we had in the directive that we were given by the property owners, was to protect that linden tree.
and that would be one way of doing it?
Yes,
yes.
Yeah.
yeah.
So, all right, so that is not reflected in this?
We can
well,
make that change and update that and make sure that there's a very
Okay.
clear plan note
Yeah,
related to that.
all right, good.
Can we clarify that? Because I'm still confused about which part of the driveway is being removed.
Do you
And
have a copy of the 11 by 17?
not a paper copy,
It's
but
a sketch plan that was in the packet.
We're digital
It
people,
has
Jen
red
and I.
and
Well, I think it was sent in digitally
We have, there are a
also.
lot of files here, so I imagine.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Well, I see that there's a reconfigured paved driveway portion of existing driveway to be removed.
The portion it's going to start right about, you see where the stairwell is on the proposed?
Yeah,
Okay, it's going to start right about there is where the old driveway will stop. and the new will go from there around the corner. It'll pretty much follow the pattern of the existing, except
Right.
it'll come back onto our property. Right now, it drifts off our property a little bit. And then
Oh, it does,
they'll,
it crosses the line, okay.
then they'll reduce it where the proposed garage is. There'll be I think that's, let's see how wide that is. There's a 10-foot wide strip that goes out towards the right-of-way and then widens out by where the linden is.
Okay, so that portion to the east side, the rear of the house going toward the garage, is that the part that we're talking about, replacing the asphalt with gravel?
That's the part we're recommending,
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
And I would put in a pitch to replace all of it with gravel. It's in
Well,
a
again,
floodplain.
you've got an existing driveway that it's functional. Why go tearing it out?
Well, yeah, I know.
Creating problems, you know, you've got a, it's not a real steep slope,
it's
but
not.
it's a
It's a
slope.
relatively
It's a
slope. and
slope.
You start getting gravel on there, you're gonna have
Well,
issues.
it was, I mean, one option, we're not gonna, we're not here to design anything, but one option would be to keep the steep part paved, but the level part pervious. So the reason that we are interested in is even though it does rip it up, it creates a pervious area
Right.
Right.
and allows water infiltration. So that's why we always ask for it.
And it's also at right about the same point where you have where the reconfiguration
Right.
starts anyway.
Right,
So
right.
from that point on, certainly it would be a huge improvement.
I mean, if I remember correctly from yesterday, that driveway is not in bad shape, so, you know, there's no
Right.
need to
I
tear
don't
it
think we're
up.
talking about I'm not talking about the driveway, I'm talking more about the parking part.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, you're thinking that we go right up to the corner of the house with pavement and then make the parking area all gravel.
Yeah, I mean,
We could, yeah, we
That's
could
one
look at it
option.
that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good option.
Yep.
Okay.
other, yeah, the most, obviously, the most notable part about the property are those trees, and it does sound like you're doing everything possible to save all of them,
Yes.
especially the linden, not just the linden. but
Not just the linden, the elms as well.
But there's,
Yeah.
there's really no activity that's going to be happening down by the elm, so they're not really threatened. It's really the linden because it's so close to the construction.
Exactly. That's correct.
And that can be tricky, I know. So
Yes.
good luck with all of the efforts that you're putting
We will be
into-
sure that, that the tree protection plan is submitted to you far in advance of this going to a work session for approval, so that you see that there is a plan in place.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right.
I have a question.
Okay.
Are the shed and the shower outside of the garage? On the drawing I'm looking at, it looks like they're overlapping.
The shed is, let's see. Or you're looking at,
I'm looking at the one that we were just talking about with the red and green line.
oh, okay.
It
'Cause
may
it-
just be the resolution or whatever you call that.
Oh, you're talking about the existing.
Yeah, they'll.
So those red lines are existing, those dotted lines?
Red lines
So
are
will there be a
existing.
Will there be a rinse station and a shed in the new dwelling?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
What you're seeing in the dark line is what's proposed.
That's the
so-
old. The old is the dotted and the new is the dark. Okay.
Dark,
Yep.
yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Well, that's another improvement.
It's a happy thing.
Yeah.
So where are we here? Sounds like we like it in general. We've asked about the driveway. You're going to go back and talk perhaps and put your heads together about,
Yeah, we have had that preliminary discussion, so I think it's just a matter of firming that up with the property owner and putting it in writing on a plan as a plan note to make sure that it's very clear.
okay.
And then how do you want to handle with historic? We just find out the
Well, I mean,
information?
that's not our thing. I would
Okay.
just,
You're
I was
just
just
curious.
Check into it.
I'm just making an assumption that
Okay.
this historic would be all over this, but that's between you and them.
I'm assuming that the powers to be, the lawyers have done all this, but
Right,
I'll
who knows?
check into that.
You know what they say about assuming. I have no knowledge about it.
We can get a revised plan to you showing, once this decision of the driveway, if you'd like. And
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And then we'll also see that linden protection
Correct.
plan.
Yes.
And other than that, I don't think we have any other issues. None were expressed here, so pretty solid,
Yeah.
pretty solid plan.
So we could go for January the 4th?
There is a hand raised.
Oh,
All right, here we go. Who's raised? So whoever has raised their hand, please speak.
Yes, my name is Edward Warren. I'm a neighbor of
Okay.
the property at 127. I'm at 115, and I represent, along with my neighbor David Preston, 115, 117 Stage Harbor Road, which is the Carriage House condominium. We are directly adjacent to this property, and where I'm sitting now in my living room, I'm about 20 feet away from the corner of the building that you're talking about. I'm also maybe a little more than 20 feet away from the large linden tree. My family and the neighboring Preston family has maintained this area for a long time in terms of its appearance and gardens and so forth, which probably you've noticed as you came by in recent days. We take that seriously, and some of our concerns you've just addressed about the linden tree. The linden tree and other shrubs are particularly important here as a legacy of the old estate, just a little bit further down the road, where the large trees and plantings were an important part of the history of these properties and of the legacy that we've inherited here. We're concerned about some of the closeness and the proximity of these developments to our properties, and we are exploring ideas about trying to disengage the properties from each other just a little bit so that the closeness of the proposed redevelopment of 127 does not make it appear, or actually appear to become even closer to our property, which is at 115, 117. One of the issues that we're considering as to what might be addressed, some of these things, how they might be corrected, is the driveway location. Right now, the property owners at 127 enter through the southern entrance by the mailbox on Stage Harbor, and they follow a long course of driveway, as you were just discussing, up to the rear of the house, where they park their cars typically, and then they exit through the right-of-way at 115, 117 Stage Harbor. It's a long circuitous route, about 3/4 the length of the circle. It seems to us there's the possibility that the driveway could be shortened substantially in terms of its length, and the amount of hardscape or whatever surface that you decide to allow in this area would be substantially less if the proposed new garage for the property is located on the southern side of the building as opposed to the eastern side. Relocation to the southern side would mean that there would be substantially less traffic going down the very, very busy right-of-way at 115, 117 Stage Harbor, where there are 3 other families that use that entrance and exit route. This is a significant issue, particularly in the spring and summer and early fall, on busy weekends or other vacation weeks, when there are a substantial number of persons here and everything's quite close and sometimes a little bit overwhelming. So those are some points that we're making to other authorities. The Historic Commission met last week and determined to delay consideration on this for up to 60 days, while a technical consultant about the historic relevance of parts of this property is in fact considered. That is something that the Historic Commission is working on at this time. So there are issues here, particularly in regard to the planting. We understand your perspective about coastal preservation and property and so forth, but there are substantial other features here that we need to address. And I think you're beginning to do that with concern for the linden tree and other things. But the driveway and the square footage for the hardscape are particularly important issues. There may be other ways to mitigate that and lessen that substantially that I think should be considered before the final plans for this property are made and determined. I recognize that that's not fully in your consideration, but I do want you to understand, as members of the Conservation Commission, that this is important to us, the neighboring property. And again, I emphasize, I am 15 to 20 feet away from the corner of the building where I'm sitting right now. It's very close. Why is it so close? These properties are a legacy of the old estate and how it was developed in the 1980s. And there are features to it which are consistent over that period of time. But when such a major development as this is contemplated, it seems like it's also an opportunity to make things for human beings, in addition to plants, a little bit more spacious and a little bit more comfortable in terms of the proximity of one family to another. Again, I repeat, 4 families are on this driveway. It's very close knit. Something that could lessen the traffic and the burden of this right-of-way is something that I think should be considered. I'll answer any questions if you have any from me, from any members of the group.
Well, thank you, Mr. Warren. As you noted, the concerns about the driveway are largely outside of our purview, our scope. But it does have to go to zoning, right?
Yes.
This is where that would be. I would expect, Mr. Edward, that you would want to, or Mr. Warren, you'd want to raise these issues at the zoning hearing, and you probably get more attention on that there. But I just want to be clear, aside from the driveway, and I guess what you're talking about is essentially closing off that driveway where it enters into the shared driveway that I assume you use. Is that what you're asking for, or?
Well, some plan that might mitigate the use of it and diminish it substantially, yes.
Yeah, but do you have concerns about the plantings other than preserving the trees?
Well, the large garden, which is directly adjacent to the linden tree, which runs from the corner of the driveway here all the way down to the street, is an important, particularly important thing to our site and to people who come up and down the driveway and who walk along the street. So in the letter that we sent to you a few days ago, we emphasized that in terms of the construction, as some of the technical people just mentioned, the care be taken with the existing shrubs and shrubbery there, and particularly with the linden tree, which is, its roots are under our property as well as on the side of the 127 property.
Okay, you're saying you sent a letter to us, the Conservation Commission?
Yes, I did.
Okay, I haven't seen it. Has anyone seen it? No. Okay, we haven't received it, so we're at a loss, but we will.
Okay.
We will look at it when it's provided. So I guess.
Was it by email or did you drop it off in the office?
It was sent by email. I think it was sent yesterday morning.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either. And if it was that close, the commissioners most likely wouldn't have had a chance to absorb it anyway.
Right,
We
well,
generally ask for things about a week in advance.
I would urge you, if you would, to read it. If you already have it, please notify me and I'll send it to you again. But it does have comments that are detailed and pertinent to your deliberations as well as to the historic committee's deliberations as well. I would urge
So
you
I
to-
guess it's getting continued, it seems like. So I will look for the letter and distribute it.
Yes, and would you
before the
please
next year.
notify me if you don't have it? It's a communication that has 2 attachments to it. I think it was
Okay.
sent yesterday morning about 10 o'clock.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so we will give that a thorough reading.
So with that, and I know Nikki had mentioned January 4th. I think it would be difficult with the holiday break for us to get this turned around and make sure we have good communication. And I would like to have time to read the letter from the abutters and make sure that we're taking into consideration concerns about the vegetation along that property line. So I would maybe wonder if we could continue to the second hearing in January versus the first.
That's no problem. That's the 11th.
That would give us a little bit more time to make any, and reach out and make sure that we're
Right, yeah,
working with
that
the neighbors.
sounds good. That
Right.
sounds like a good idea. So,
All right, with that, I'll make a motion to continue 127 Stage Harbor Road to January 11th.
Latin second.
roll call vote, Janet,
Aye.
Elise.
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Mary is gone, and I vote aye. We'll see you then.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, the next notice of intent is 3 Oyster Drive, 3 Oyster Drive LLC, map 15A, parcel 8, H15B, SC 103599, raise existing dwelling and construct a new dwelling meeting FEMA standards and building code.
Good afternoon. For the record, Thad Aldridge, East Southeast, here representing the Saponaros. These folks have been in the neighborhood for over 20 years, and now they're making a diagonal hop from their house at 8 Oyster over to 3 Oyster. We were here before you with this project a few years ago to simply raise the house, and now we're looking to raise and replace the house. The lot itself, within the floodplain, elevation 13, there's the vegetated wetland across the street, which has sprung up in recent years, and it's thriving quite well with the exception of some phragmites. We're within the 50 and 100 on this. A little bit of the property is outside the 100. It's just a touch. This is a little lot. We're looking at 3,265 square feet, so options are rather limited. The proposed dwelling, we're looking to square off the building. That will increase the building coverage by 143 square feet. Which on other properties would be a very small addition. The building itself will be elevated above the base flood elevation and design flood elevation. Vents will be installed for the enclosed areas underneath. The proposal is for a carport for where the car is being parked, so there won't be a garage there. That'll be left open. A new septic system is being proposed with this, and that one is meeting the full requirements of the town of Chatham regulations. So this is going to have a very tall wall. We're also denitrifying to take advantage of limiting the size of the leaching field so that we can fit it in the smallest footprint possible. That denitrification usually comes with an additional bedroom. This one does not. So many of the patios are being removed, and they're proposing crushed stone in place. Underneath the deck, there is a patio that is proposed. The landscaping is proposed to be native. One of the features on the property, they would like to install, use a lot of reclaimed stone in order to install a wall around the perimeter of it. In the front in particular, there are a number of people who take advantage of parking on that shell. And as the road is not within the layout to begin with, it puts them further onto this property, and they'd like to discourage that. The driveway is being relocated. The current driveway can just about fit 2 cars if you're good at Tetris. And otherwise, this will fit 2 cars, one after another. There is one tree that needs to be removed with the installation of the septic system, and one tree has been proposed. And the one tree that was of great importance to the commission at the previous hearings is proposed to be protected. If there are questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Ted. Did I hear you say you already came before us to raise it? I actually don't have.
Years ago, we obtained a
okay.
permit to raise, not raise.
2019.
RAISE, yes, yeah.
Yes,
To
elevate the
it.
existing dwelling.
I'm just finding it here. 2019, we issued an order of conditions to allow elevation of the building.
Elevation, okay. And now
I
we're,
wonder, I thought it was familiar.
yeah, okay.
And it's fun to be able to say raise and raise differently.
There you
Yes,
go.
yes.
You often get a chance.
Which word am I using now? Yes. Okay. Well, anybody? Questions? This is just yet one more in that area.
They're all going to go up eventually.
They're all going to go up. Yeah.
Or out to sea, either way.
Yeah. So while I wait for everyone to flip through their stuff, in your application, you said something about photographs can be found on the webpage for the property. Is that on your website, or?
Yes, under the abutter notification, there's a link to.
Oh, okay, okay.
So on our webpage, we'll have panoramic photos. We have some photos from a few years ago where there was a moon tide and all of the roads were flooded out.
I remember that. Yeah.
Right. The septic will be A/I. Could you Remind us what that
Yeah.
An
refers.
innovative alternative septic system, denitrifying is the real key for it.
This is the coming thing.
Yes, we can expect to see more of those, maybe not in Chatham, but definitely throughout the Cape.
Yes.
Those rules are very vague at this point. and
Yeah.
They're coming.
We'll know about them shortly after they're released, sometime in 2023.
And you're having to do that in this case because the groundwater is too high?
Yeah, we're looking for maximum feasible compliance. The existing system, it passed an inspection, but since the breach occurred and migrated to the south, we've seen groundwater elevate here. So we don't think that the existing system really meets that 4 or 5 foot separation to groundwater.
Okay.
And then because this is being torn down and rebuilt, the health agent has determined that we need to meet the full compliance, which is the leaching has to have, the ground above the leaching has to be 1 foot above the base flood elevation.
So you have to raise the whole thing up, plus it's a different technology.
Yes, we are also adding that technology for the maximum feasible compliance to cover all the bases.
Right, okay.
We're also concerned, I mean, it's a 2-bedroom septic system, which is small to begin with. We're reducing that by 25%, which we're allowed to request, but that just makes it a very small system. And the denitrifying will help increase the life expectancy of that.
All right.
It wouldn't be fun to replace. It's not going to be fun to construct.
No. All right, I don't have any other questions.
I have a note here, Thad, about to check into proposed stone walls and driveway barriers, but I'm looking at the plan and I'm struggling to see where they are.
So if you look at the plan that's up on the screen,
Yep,
you can see the darker squares. I mean, it's really a dry laid set of large stones. There are some of those that will be placed at grade for part of the driveway to give it stability. It'll be crushed stone in between where it's lighter gray, and then all around the perimeter of the property where the streets are. They'll set stones
right, that's
in
what I was
place.
looking at. So what are the sizes of those?
Variable. It's
And how does that not present a problem when floodwaters come in there in terms of redirection?
so these aren't grouted into place. These aren't. I mean, it's and we're talking about 6 inches above ground. It's not really a huge barrier.
About like that?
Mhm.
And then they vary and...
They're going to vary in size and shape.
And what is the purpose of that on the boundary of the property?
It's really to delineate that limit of that road. In the front in particular, where it's all shell, we've seen, the Saponeros have seen a number of people enjoy parking there. The road layout for Seagull Road is 10 feet wide. The pavement is 18 plus or minus. It's a patchwork of pavement. Nothing exists within the road layout. I mean, it all extends out. One other point that's on the plan that I failed to mention, they're proposing to put the utilities underground. The utility poles are on all of the neighboring properties, so they're working with the neighbors to do that. And easements will need to be acquired in order to run the utilities underground, outside the road layout, over people's properties, but within the paved portion of the road.
Huh, okay. Does this have to go to zoning?
Oh, yes.
I thought so. So have you filed yet?
I don't believe we filed yet, but we wanted to have your comments first.
Okay. And so the septic wall, it's tops off at elevation 14?
Elevation 14.
And how far above the ground level?
It's about 9 feet.
About 9 feet. That's good.
They're proposing lattices on the side with plants to grow in them. But yeah, it is a rather large feature on the property.
Sort of like the one that's at the corner there.
Even worse.
Yeah, yeah.
That one was at elevation 12, I believe, and this
This
will
is
be
going
at
to be a
14.
bit higher.
Yeah.
Okay.
but we were able to reduce the footprint of this one, so, and it's in the back, so it won't be as noticeable.
No, well, from the Seagull Road side. Yeah,
Correct.
okay.
If we could just get sewers down there faster, we wouldn't have to put these in.
Well,
All in due time.
all in due time, at the right time. And I had a question about the dewatering area, but I just saw that on the site plan called out.
And we've come to find that if things are constructed at the right phase of the moon, we don't need a dewatering area. If the tides are a little bit higher, we need a dewatering area, and that'd be right into the existing septic system.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
I will make a
Well,
note
the
of
first
that.
one that we did over on Scala,
Scallop was the first one.
we had a dewatering area, it ended up, there were a number of unknown utilities that went through it, it was all sorts of wires that crisscrossed it. We had to delay the start of construction to figure out what to do with the water, and they had the hole open, and then it just wasn't getting wet. So they were able to construct the foundation without having to worry about dewatering.
Interesting, okay, thank you.
The water is never static.
Yeah, no, it is not. Okay.
Anybody else?
Good.
Good?
I don't, we can't schedule it, I don't know if we should be scheduling it for an order yet.
Before
if we
zoning,
haven't
yeah.
filed yet. Why don't we could continue it and then have a check-in and see where the
I
process.
mean, we know we're not gonna get to zoning until February anyway. If you wanna
Right.
go to the February work session, that would be fine.
Okay, that would probably,
That would work. You don't anticipate too many problems, I assume, with zoning.
you never know.
This is just a sort of yet another,
We'll see how zoning goes.
okay.
Yep.
All right.
So that would be the February 22nd work session. So I'll move that we continue 3 Oyster Drive to the February 22nd work session for an order of conditions.
Roll
Blackman,
call.
second.
Roll call vote, Janet.
Aye.
Elise.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
And I vote aye. All right, see you then.
Oh, he stays right there.
The next one is 299 Cranberry Lane, Timothy F. Bryan, map 15K, parcel 7-7, redevelopment of property, new house, guest house, septic, sports court, and land management plan.
Good afternoon again. For the record, Thad Eldridge, East Southeast, here with Paul Muldoon, Mike Squire, Teresa Sprague, and Carrie Ryan is on the line.
Yeah.
Can we make this one as easy as the last one?
No.
You can always try.
So this property is tough. The earlier developments on the property altered it enough that when the floodplains rose, it made the coastal banks a little bit funky. We have fragmented coastal banks that go around the garage, go around an addition to the house, which has a label on it, first floor elevation 6.9. The coastal bank terminates right near the tennis court out on the far end lane side. So we have delineated out all of these and we've gone from there. So we have the existing home. Again, the piece of it does extend into the floodplain with a coastal bank coming up to it. We have an existing garage. When it was constructed, they excavated behind it, which is now coastal bank, so it's well within the resource area. We have a tennis court. And then we have a whole pile of invasive plant species out here. So the proposal is to raise and replace. The main dwelling, we're proposing to pull back from everything. Because of where all the resource areas are located, getting everything outside of the 50 is a real challenge. It's not really possible. We don't want to put the building back into the floodplain. We can't fill the floodplain in order to put the building there. So the bulk of the building is still located within the 50, or a good chunk of the building. There is a minor increase within the 0 to 50 of 210 square feet, and that does come with removing, pulling back from the north side and from the east side. That building that extends into the floodplain will be taken out, and we'll have a building that at least conforms to the floodplain requirements. So the garage, the idea is to take that one down and then move it back. The slope in front will be partially restored, and the building will be sited within the 0 to 50, but it's better than being within the resource area. The tennis court will be removed. This is going to come at the end of the project because it makes an excellent staging area, parking area for during construction. The proposal is to replace that with a much smaller sports court, along with a shed for sports equipment, and all of the utilities are really concentrated to this area. Additionally, this is the only spot in the property that's outside the 100, makes it optimal for the septic system. And the floodplain extends into that, so we are proposing to fill part of the floodplain for the septic to be here, but this puts it the furthest from all the resource areas possible. So there's a new driveway proposed off of Far End Lane. This is the shortest distance to get from the floodplain to the developed part of the property. And that would be used primarily for the family. The other driveway that exists out there, we're proposing to augment that. It says shell on the plan. Some of the neighbors have asked for stone instead, so we'd like to make that change. The parking area out there would be shifted over a little bit, making it easier to turn around within the driveway. And for delivery trucks and other, we've proposed 2 areas with grass pave that would enable them to get to the property and turn around. Those are the honeycomb patches that are located closest to the garage guest house. From the front parking area, there's a walkway that's proposed to get up to the patio to the front door. And then the beach access, which currently is within the Cranberry Lane road layout, we're proposing to rid the property of the stairs to nowhere. I don't know if anybody noticed the wooden stairs at the top of the revetment. We'd like to construct stairs within the revetment itself to get down to the beach. With that, Teresa has a land management plan.
Sure. Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, Teresa Sprague with Blue Flax Design here on behalf of the Ryan family. I'm just going to go in a little bit of detail about what's happening from a vegetation perspective on the lot. The top of the coastal bank is vegetated with a historically pruned hedge, which consists of a mix of native and invasive species. To the northwest, we have a nice stand of beach plum, healthy stand of beach plum. But as we move further east, that very well-maintained hedge is mainly Asiatic bittersweet that's been cut and managed sort of in shrub form versus the typical vine form that we usually see. In addition to the bittersweet, we have some rugosa rose, and then we also and shrub honeysuckle with a little smattering of bayberry mixed in. Lawn then extends past the hedge to the house and directly around the entire dwelling. On the northwest corner of the property, we have a beautiful native plant community consisting of pitch pine, eastern red cedar, oak, which dominate the canopy, an understory of bearberry, Pennsylvania sedge, wavy hairgrass, low bush blueberry, little blue stem, Virginia rose, beach plum, and bayberry. That's the one area of this property that we don't have shaded or hatched on that northwestern slope that we would be maintaining. And our goal with the restoration was to mimic that as we work on the invasive plant management and restoration as we move on the northwestern side of the property into the south. Lawn extends to the south of the house within the A floodplain right up to the tennis court. The topography slopes up to another coastal bank, as Thad just pointed out, and the vegetation community from here south is mainly invaded. The canopy is dominated by black locust. There is an understory of black cherry, Asiatic bittersweet, shrub honeysuckle, autumn olive, multiflora rose, English ivy, vine honeysuckle, border privet, mugwort, and Japanese knotweed comprise almost the entire understory vegetation, and the vines have crawled up into the canopy and done some significant damage even to the black locust trees that are invasive in that area. There is a small clearing just to the south of the garage that's mainly made up of velvet grass, which is a non-native European cool season grass species, which we're finding right now to be particularly challenging to manage. It's ubiquitous, it's literally everywhere. The only native vegetation is greenbrier in this area, which really dominates the understory and of course is not fun to work around, but it is native. However, it is aggressive, and so we would manage it to allow for restoration. In total, we're proposing to remove 11,320 square feet of lawn and tennis court that will be restored to native vegetation. The invasive plant management area totals 21,400 square feet plus or minus. So this is a significant undertaking. I think, as Thad pointed out, the actual mitigation required is quite minimal here, but the property owners are really invested in restoring this entire property. And so they've contracted with us to put together this restoration plan that we're bringing before you. The vegetation, we've got an extensive plant schedule that describes the vegetation, but in total, we're proposing to restore 48 trees, 688 shrubs, 278 grasses, 134 ferns. Obviously, as per our usual land management practices, once the invasive vegetation is removed, steep slopes will be stabilized with erosion control blanket and the entire area will be seeded with a native grass and wildflower mix. We have proposed two different mixes in this area. One to handle the shadier conditions on the site, and then another mix for the sunnier open areas on the site. And those are shown in two different colors here. The restoration planting area, which is shown in tan, is actually lawn and tennis court removal. The green area is invasive species management and restoration. Any lawn areas that are disturbed, there is an open area between the sports court, the guest house, and the home, which will sort of act as the play space for the family. This is a very large family with a number of young children, and that area is intended to be a fescue microclover lawn that would allow for easy access and circulation, and then the general sort of play space, picnic space for the family. I'm trying to think if there's any other really important points. I think one of the things that we did want to discuss is the fact that we'd like to plant these trees in different age and size classes. So right now we've got all of this canopy that's mainly invasive, that's all of the same age class. And as we start to restore this, we'd like to think about succession, because this area, particularly on the northwestern slope and the area between the sports court and the guest house, will be allowed to naturalize in perpetuity. So the goal is to really allow for succession and sort of jumpstart that, because we are going to be losing a significant amount of biomass when we remove the invasive vegetation. So trees we're proposing include white oak, swamp white oak, red oak, pitch pine, eastern red cedar, American holly, which we have found some of on site. So again, taking our cues from the native vegetation that we're finding on site, and then some understory amelanchier and witch hazel to kind of fill in that understory gap. The shrub layer we're proposing would consist of clethra, Ilex glabra, inkberry holly, winterberry holly, sweetspire, bayberry, ninebark, bush cinquefoil, beach plum, fragrant sumac, Carolina rose. We are proposing some ornamental vegetation located directly up against the foundation, so that's where we've got some hydrangeas, mainly oak leaf hydrangea, and a handful of, I think we have 10 total blue hydrangea macrophylla. So I'm happy to answer any questions about the restoration. It's an extensive plan. We have details written into our land management plan, details about the existing conditions, as well as the proposed methodology and our goals in meeting the performance standards, which you'll find on pages 18, 19, and 18 through 21. So I'm happy to answer any questions about that in detail.
Thank you both. This is a epically complex project, just in terms of the topography that you're starting with. It is resource areas going every which direction. And I did wonder when I was there whether this would be good for a site visit. I'm not sure how anybody else here would feel about that, but or whether that's necessary or not. But it is a large-scale property.
I think that's probably not a bad idea. I have to say, when I was totally overwhelmed by the number of stakes.
So was my field crew.
When I pulled up and said, oh my God. So, but after about a couple of hours, with my iPad and the plan, I think I was making sense of it, but I do think, given the complexity here, particularly with the resource areas and the strange configurations of coastal banks and where the floodplain, I would appreciate having led through. The top of my list here today was to ask you to walk us through this, but I do think there's nothing quite like being there to see it, and you could walk us through there. And the same with you, Teresa, because I was doing my usual tree counting, and I can identify the trees that are coming out for construction.
Yes.
But not the invasive ones that are coming out in the invaded areas. So, and some of those areas are so dense.
Yeah, we unfortunately were not able to provide a very specific count on those locust trees because it is so difficult to get in there. But we can certainly look at them and point them out on site.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that would be useful. Instead of trying to go through it on paper here today, especially. However, having said that, it's an equally epic amount of mitigation being put in, and obviously that's something that we're going to like. When it's all said and done, it again appears to me that there's going to be very, very few non-native plants on this property.
That's correct.
Just a few foundation plants, it sounds like.
Yes, that's correct.
So there's not much to quibble with there from our perspective. So you do need zoning, you do need Board of Health as well? Yeah, okay. So.
We have time.
You have time.
We wanted to hear your comments first. And
yeah, well, those are my comments. I don't know if anybody else wants to weigh in.
I'm going to say it again, Teresa. I love the way you feel about trees. To put 48 trees in where many times we see 48 trees going out is incredible. And this property is spectacular.
Yes.
When you drive in and see it and you wonder, boy, you could dream forever and do something fantastic. And I think the plans are wonderful for everything that could be done for a family in this location. So kudos to both of you. And I would totally vote for a site visit because I have no thorough understanding of what it's going to be.
Like a site visit, okay. Okay, good. Let's do that. And that'll save us some time today, which we need.
Right, because I do have some questions, but it's probably best to answer.
To do it there, yeah.
Okay. About the beach access and the, I'm not going to use the word excessive driveway and parking.
Okay, there's a fly in the ointment, okay. Yeah, all right, let's do that.
Do we want to continue the hearing for until the second meeting in January?
That would
That will
be
give us
the,
That would be great.
yeah, that's the 11th.
Oh,
So that gives us 1, 2, 3, that's 4 weeks from today.
is that gonna give us enough time for a site visit and?
Yeah,
Should.
this is the tough
That'll get us
time of
there.
year, but it should,
Well, the new year,
yeah,
After the
Right.
new year,
yeah.
I mean, it's.
as long as we don't have to trudge through too much snow.
Oh, I'm sure. There are abutters here today,
Oh, there are,
if you want to
okay.
have commentary.
Oh, well then, let's, yeah,
All right, do you,
we'll hold off on.
They've been
picking-
very patient. Thank you.
all right. But you'd like to come up and say something?
David Foster. I own the east-hand side of the entire construction zone, if you will. That has not changed in probably 100 years. Much to your probable chagrin, based on your comments earlier of non-invasive species, but we sort of like the way it looked 100 years ago, and like to sort of keep it less of an oasis, if you will. But we, I think, are generally in support of our new neighbors and hope to have continued dialogue with it. Like you, I've had a hard time going through and looking at all the plantings and seeing what it means and what's where and how high are they going to be and what blockage there is. So we'd like to continue some dialogue there and get a good understanding of that. There's some architectural issues that we'll probably continue to discuss with the architect and the owners. Understand that's not a topic for tonight, but just wanted to bring that up.
Okay.
So-
Sometimes we have a butters accompany the site visit. I don't know if that's an option here, I don't know.
Yeah, I'd be
If you
happy
haven't,
to do
if you
that.
haven't been led around there, you know. it
Yeah,
might
if
be
you
an
were to look,
opportunity.
I don't know if you can bring up the screen, but that's okay. You've been there. So when you come down the set of stairs, literally it's 5 feet off the rocks is where the property begins.
Right.
So,
But you are in contact with them.
yes, very
Okay.
much so, and they've been very nice to deal with. We look forward to them as being neighbors, and we hope we can work well together.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Someone else? Is that it? Okay. So we're still talking, what was-
Well, we could schedule it, the continuance to the 11th, and if we run into problems, we would push it out
Continue
from there,
again.
but we can see if it works, if we can get everything done. Is everyone good with that? All right, I will make a motion to continue 299 Cranberry Lane to January 11th.
Latin second.
roll call vote, Janet,
Aye.
Elise,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
and I vote aye. So we will see you all there then.
Great, thank you.
And Nikki will arrange the date of the on-site.
All right, the next order of conditions is 41 Mooncusters Lane, Kevin and Courtney Chase, map 11A, parcel 15-15A, SE 103587. Proposed pool, spa, patio, and associated site
We're not gonna
improvements.
make it by 4:30. Close. Not gonna make it.
Good afternoon, David McNevich with Coastal Engineering Company. Also joining me this afternoon is John Viola from Viola Pools. When we last met, the commission expressed some concerns with the proximity of the patio at the southwest corner of the pool.
Oh, it's today.
And also with the placement of the fence, the pool security fence, being extended out and close to the property line. So the plan was revised. John Viola revised the design of the pool and patio. And we pulled the patio away from that western end of the proposed pool, pull that away from the 50-foot buffer zone or buffer, and move the patio area over to the east side of the pool. Also, move the fence away from the southeast property line. It had been suggested to move that sort of to the edge of existing clearing, which is what we've done. And then also, the commission asked for some more details on the planting. I met with the Chase's landscape contractor, and he suggested what they would like. We had the commission's planting list. He had the commission's planting list and put together this plan here. So I hope that this addresses the concerns from the commission that they had previously expressed. I would say that this change resulted in about 140, 150 square foot reduction in patio and pool patio coverage. This project will result in removal of approximately 25 to 2,700 square feet of turf lawn, in addition to the native plants that are being proposed here. So I guess I'll open it up to any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. So I think, actually, Janet, you were the one who was leading the way on the fence move. Is that, I'm having a little hard time seeing it. I don't know if you.
I'm having a terrible time figuring out where exactly the fence is. It looks like it goes in a circle around the edge of clearing, to me.
Well, so not quite. So let's start with the west side of the house. There's a set of proposed stairs that are coming down from the patio there. So the fence would come out from the house, go across at the bottom of those stairs, come in tight to the retaining wall, run along the retaining wall, and then run towards the southeast outside of the 50-foot buffer zone until it gets to the edge of clearing, and then follow with the limit of work edge of clearing around to the south and southeast of the pool, and then you can see it follows the edge of clearing out once it gets outside the buffer zone. It's still following the edge of clearing, and then when it gets up to the driveway, it ties back into the corner of the garage. So that's what the fence is.
Okay, I think I'm seeing it. It's not easy to follow, but if I look real close, I think I can follow it.
So it's the line with the X? So it goes
It's a line with the X.
Line
correct.
X,
It's a
line
with
X.
the
The X line, which sort of disappears sometimes with other as it joins other lines, but,
That wasn't easy to tell.
okay.
We made a concerted effort to not have that, the fence at all in the 50-foot
Right.
zone.
Yeah, well, that's our goal.
Well, it still seems, if this is a pool fence, it's going all the way to the driveway. I mean, the pool's, it's going all the way around the side of the house, all the way to the driveway, which doesn't make sense if it's just a pool fence.
Well, at that, when you get at the east edge of the patio, it actually goes outside the buffer zone. I think the area you're talking about.
Yeah,
But it is following
outside.
along the clearing. It is following the clearing line now, and then
So,
ties into the.
if we're dealing with just our area, you have a pool fence that is open. It doesn't, it
No,
just
the
doesn't
fence is
seem
going
to make
exist.
sense overall. I understand that some of it's not in our area.
Yeah, it's enclosing lawn area.
Yeah.
It's enclosing other parts. It's not,
It's not a pool fence.
as such.
It's a yard fence or a,
It should be labeled as such.
Well, its purpose is the pool security.
Okay.
Yeah, in theory, I guess you could say that if you connected to the pool fence to that proposed stone wall and followed it
Yeah,
to the house, then it would be,
That's outside of jurisdiction.
it would be more
Yeah.
of a pool fence, even though that part of it would be, as you say, outside of our jurisdiction. And then
so we're kind of
It-
stuck, but,
it would be easier to call it a pool fence.
yeah.
It's kind of neither fish nor fowl here.
I'm just having trouble with the word pool when it's
Yeah.
way more than a
Well,
pool fence.
outside of what we call it, the question is, does it meet our needs in terms of the resource area?
I mean, it could be pulled in more.
What's the difference between the X-line pool fence designation and that squiggly, the curly Q kind of line that is kind of,
Yeah,
it goes around the clearing?
That was just on the site plan portion, that was just a sort of the delineation of the mitigation where the native plantings will be done, just to call out some area.
Okay.
So, just so you could see where that was, and then the planting plan actually shows you what's gonna be planted.
Okay, so the pool fence comes from the steps and goes toward number 23, and then goes to number 22 and then out. I see it, right?
I think.
Correct.
Okay.
I believe that's what you're describing,
Okay,
yes.
yep, thank you. It's hard to visualize.
Well, there's a lot of detail in that area.
So while we're mulling over the pool fence,
I don't know that we can.
over to the mitigation area up on the edge of the lot, did we not talk about demarcating it as a mitigation area? I thought we did, but I don't see anything here, showing demarcation for that area. Which is something, yeah, go ahead.
I'm not sure what area you're talking
I'm
about, I'm
talking,
sorry.
not the mitigation area by the house, but over to the left as I'm looking at the map. Northwest, okay. There, we have a mitigation area up there, well, we used to, yeah, it still says it's 890 square feet of proposed mitigation plantings. And, yeah, and what we usually like to see there is some sort of demarcation that tells people that that's the special area and that, landscapers shouldn't go in there with weed whackers, et cetera, and it shouldn't be replaced with hydrangeas, et cetera. It's a special a protected area, and what we found is the best way to do that is to demarcate it with any way of a number of means, including a split rail fence, including, boulders, including posts or signs or whatever. But I thought we had talked about doing that. I think it's particularly useful for that part of the mitigation area.
I don't believe we talked about it, but certainly that could be done, some kind of, again, it's just a visual marker.
Right.
Whether that's just a very low rail fence or something like that.
Right.
Or some kind of markers.
Yep.
Yeah, that certainly, we can do that if that was a condition.
Yeah, okay, thank you. All right, so back to the pool fence. Yeah,
I don't know that there's anything we can
well,
do.
I think it sort of skirts the line, but on the whole, in my view, it serves a purpose of a pool fence, I guess, even though it's a pretty expansive interpretation of a pool fence. It could be brought in, but only largely where it is outside of our jurisdiction. So I don't know if we can have much to say about it. But it wouldn't keep me up at night if we went with this.
How does the pool fence interact with the retaining wall on the west side? What is the height of that retaining wall? You have top is elevation 24.
And the grade,
What's the grade there?
drops off, so the fence is running along the bottom of the retaining wall to provide the required barrier. Vertical.
How high is the top of the retaining wall off the ground at that point?
I'll take a look.
What I'm getting at in questioning here is you have a retaining wall and a fence side by side with what's in between. Are they touching?
Yeah, the fence, the fence is just on the outside face of it as it was proposed by Viola Pools. So that at the angle in the retaining wall, the retaining wall's about that's about 3 feet, 3.5 foot exposure at the highest point. Other than that, the retaining wall is less exposed face than that. So the top of the wall is at elevation 24, and at that angle point in the retaining wall, the grade is approximately 20.5. So the retaining wall has approximately 3.5 feet of exposed face there. And that's the highest exposure.
Why do you even need a fence then if you have a wall of about 3.5 feet, which my understanding is, I mean, you have an auto cover, so that would cover that, but beyond that, even if you didn't have an auto cover, I think the fence height needs to be, I don't know, 3.5, about 3.5.
Yeah, no, again, that's it has to be more than 3.5. I think it has to be at least 4, possibly 5. Maybe John could answer that. But that's that one location where it's 3.5.
Right.
As you move towards the house, really the grade is the separation of the height of the exposed face on the wall. As you get to those stairs, it's only about 1 foot. And as you get from the angle point coming towards the southeast, it's only approximately 1.5 to 2 feet.
Right.
So that would not be the vertical barrier.
No, it wouldn't, but
for the pool enclosure.
What we have seen from time to time are people who can construct a fence on top of the wall, or some sort of structure, or security structure on top of the wall to prevent access to the pool area. I don't know whether that was considered, but I'm just wondering about this wall and a fence.
And what's the fence made of?
I'm going to ask John to answer that question.
It's aluminum style, like wrought iron look.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Black aluminum. And we added the pool fence as just an additional safety precaution. We do have auto covers in the pool, but they do break down, and we do not use those in the wintertime, so it's not really a totally safe barrier, even though it does pass code.
No, I understand that. I'm just looking for ways to utilize these.
We kept the fence
walls.
along the bottom of. We kept the fence along the bottom of the wall because the gates have to swing outward and it'd be awkward at the top of the stairs.
At the bottom of the stairs.
Yes.
Yep. Well, I have to say I agree with Bob. I mean, I think that you're doing about as good a job as you might in keeping the fence close in at that area where it really encompasses much more is in the area that's outside of our jurisdiction. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's another one of those it is what it is things, I think. Yeah, my rule of thumb for a pool fence, if you can let a dog go and it's can play, has places to play, then it's no longer a pool fence. And I think this sort of fits into that category. But nevertheless.
What else? Where are we?
Anybody want to make this the ditch to die in, so to speak, or?
I don't know what we can do. So I mean, most of it's out of our jurisdiction.
Well,
The part that is
part
really
that's
the
the part
issue.
that, the part that troubles us, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I hate approving it because there's part that's outside the jurisdiction, but we can't not approve because the part that's an issue is outside.
Right, right, yeah,
So it's sort of damned if you do, damned if you don't.
well,
For purposes of writing conditions, where do we land, or have we landed, because I know we've gone back and forth, on a gap underneath the fence when you have a pool?
Oh, I can't
Wildlife
remember.
access. I
Is
mean, I
it
think
4
there-
inches?
Well, I thought, but on the other hand, that makes sense for a yard, for a fence that's doing something else. But when you
Which
have a
makes
pool
sense.
fence, I think that for the safety of the wildlife, you do not want the wildlife getting in there where there's a hazard
Right.
of falling into the pool.
So you make it less?
So you take it right to the ground. to prevent them
But
from getting
this,
under it.
well,
Because of this, in this location, there's no place that wildlife would want to access anyway. It's all completely developed. Everything inside the fence is
Sure.
totally developed, so you don't want them coming through there anyway. It's not good for them. And there's a vulnerability, there's a danger with the pool, even with the auto cover.
yep.
okay,
So I would put it to the ground.
put it to the ground, okay, that's probably where they're gonna put it anyway, right? I
Yes.
assume your design,
Yep,
that's where your design
okay.
is, okay.
Yeah, okay. Oh, God, 420, okay.
All right, we have to fish or cut bait here,
I know.
in the interest of time,
Yep,
to use a local phrase.
Right.
yeah, let's take it to the work session.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's another one, it is what it is. All right, then I will make a motion to take 41 Mooncusser's Lane to the work session on January 25th for an order of conditions.
and you will, you can send us a revised plan showing the demarcation, and we won't have to wait on that, we can just get that before the work session, and we'll be good.
Absolutely, we can do that.
Okay, all
All
right.
right, Latin second.
Roll call vote, Janet.
Aye.
Elise.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
And I vote aye. Thank you, gentlemen.
And do
Thank
we
you very
now
much.
move- Do we now move over?
Not until, oh, no, not until,
Will we be at a good stopping?
well, let's see, what's next?
Sears Road.
Through the chair, can I ask a question that has to
Sure.
do with that?
Yeah, please.
Since I have all the Tillipene 1-1s and it's getting pretty late, and I know that you said you had to move, and we have a couple other obligations after 5, would it be possible to request a continuance for the Tillipene Run projects to the next meeting, but request to be at the first?
No.
And a live hearing in that hearing?
Indeed. You're wi-
Yes,
you're wi-
so I'll make the motion, Catherine, but this is, the materials that we got just relate to 75, right? So we were going to
Yes, 'cause we
continue
wanted to
the other two
discuss-
anyway, because we don't have materials
and
on
we-
yet.
we-
Okay,
We may have a, one for the property in the middle where all the transitions are gonna happen.
Yep.
But that was the main focus of this one. We're not changing anything on 27.
right.
So, yeah.
yeah, that's delightful, all right.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to continue 75 Tillipy Run, 59 Tillipy Run, and 27 Tillipy Run to January, you want the 4th or the 11th?
Can we do the 4th?
4th? Yep, to January
Yeah, I'll go
4th.
with the 4th.
Yep.
Latin second.
Roll call vote, Janet, before you change your mind.
Aye.
Elise.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
I vote aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yep.
Oh, you're here for that?
Sorry, here for Tillipy, I'm so sorry.
Yes, that's all right, I'm with them.
Okay.
All right, now we're back to 180,
Sears Road.
185 Sears, right?
So are we moving or no?
Nah, well, I don't know, are we moving?
Yeah, we only have 5 minutes. We have to be out of here in 5 minutes.
No, we can actually have up to quarter till, he said.
Oh, we can,
Yeah, if we,
We have what?
we,
we can go into.
worst case scenario is a quarter of, we can, but let's see what he says. I think they're talking.
Okay,
now.
well, let's see if we can do it.
All right. All my questions.
Can we keep going, Mark? we were wondering whether or not we should forge ahead or whether you want to kick us out.
How long do you think this will be?
Well, we've got one more NOI and then a couple of
1, 2,
COCs, so
3, 4.
it's hard to say, but we might be able to get done by a quarter of. Yeah, okay.
So yes?
Yeah.
Can you get done by quarter of?
We'll try.
We'll try.
Trying.
Not, we'll run. We'll,
All right.
all right.
All right, 185 Sears Road, Richard and Sandra McDonald, map 11A1, parcel 2-2, SE 103583 and 3585, proposed reinforced salt marsh and guardrail and proposed coastal bank restoration.
Through the chair, Don Monroe from Coastal Engineering with Seth Wilkinson, representing the McDonald's. I'll share my screen to start and then turn it over to Seth.
And brevity would be appreciated, because we
Okay.
have a hard deadline here, pretty fast.
Okay. So the first order of business, I believe, is the salt marsh restoration project as well as the guardrail. The commission asked us to do an alternatives analysis, which we did, to determine if there was another alternative to protecting the toe of the coastal bank along the driveway, roadway. We looked at, as you can see, a number of items, no action, signage, boulders instead of the proposed guardrail, a paved apron along the bottom to try to keep the cars on the road surface rather than up onto the toe of the coastal bank. And all of them pointed towards the guardrail being the best way to keep the cars from car tires from actually rubbing up against the toe of the coastal bank along the roadway. So that's where we are with the timber guardrail. Then as far as the salt marsh restoration, proposal, I think you asked for us a pathway through the salt marsh itself, but I'll let Seth speak to that. And I don't know, Seth, do you want to share your screen or?
That's fine, Dawn. I think yours is up, so that works just fine. For the record, Seth Wilkinson, Wilkinson Ecological Design. I believe the only change requested for this particular application for 185 Sears was the change for that, showing that footpath. The way we typically do that is just with sand, and that could accommodate both walkers, beach walkers, and if you need to pull a dinghy through there, that should be just wide enough to do that. So the envelope would be solid through that area, but it would be slightly depressed, and sand would be placed there. So it would be a sand path from, connecting intertidal beach to intertidal beach.
And through the chair, I don't know, I think you opened up both projects at the same time. The other one is the fiber roll array that was proposed, some deck repairs in this section over here. So I don't know where we're at with that one. I know Nate Jones from my office was carrying the torch on the project. So if there are any questions related to any one of the elements, the guardrail, the footpath in the salt marsh, or the, let me get to the right one. And this plan shows the guardrail. So I'd leave it up to the commission to ask Seth or I questions about any one of those elements.
Okay. I do have a few things I'd like to present on the coastal bank NOI, maybe if it's easier to take that second. There's a couple more additions I should probably review there.
Is that this one here, Seth?
Yeah, when we get to that, I'll probably need to share my screen.
Okay.
But Mr. Chairman, whatever your preference is
Yeah, so
we'll accommodate.
the path that you have in the high marsh, the intention is to have an area not just for foot traffic, but also for dragging dinghies from the dinghy rack?
Yes.
So you would expect all the public, members of the public who have dinghies there to drag their dinghies through that path?
Correct.
Yeah, not gonna happen.
Okay.
Not altogether different than a lot of sites where there's a break in the marsh from people simply just trampling it. We've all seen that. I think it's best for a marsh if you pick one area and focus the the traffic to that location than having everyone pick their own pathway through a marsh and have greater impacts.
Yeah, it would be great if that's the way it worked out. My view of human nature is that it is not a guarantee, it's not a slam dunk that would occur.
There is sort of an inherent training period. We often put just a seasonal snow fencing. There's a note about that on the plan.
Right here.
That's primarily there to keep rack and flotsam and jetsam from accumulating on the young plants. Once they're established, that fence is removed, and it's certainly not it's taken out before the winter. So hopefully that would be sufficient.
So you're suggesting a temporary fence in between the high marsh and the dinghy rack, and to direct traffic to the break in the high marsh?
Yes, so basically what we would do is we'd put it, come off that corner of the concrete CES there, and then run it over to the dash line in the path, so that there would be a break in the fence, and then we would pick it up again on the other side of the dash, and then run it along the seaward face of the marsh. So the easy path is to go through the area without snow fencing. If you really want to try to pull your dinghy through a snow fence, you can do that. But I think most folks will choose the easy path.
I don't see a depiction of a temporary fence here.
It's just a plan note. I might have to get over to.
Oh, I see.
To my documents if you want to see that. But it's a second note in the right hand margin of the restoration plan.
Okay.
Sorry, my fault.
Yeah, there it is. Wooden
If you just
fencing.
pull to the right, you should see it there.
All right.
Right here. Note number 2.
Yeah, I see it now.
See it.
Yep. 36-inch wooden snow fence. Okay. I don't know. Okay, so questions about that component. There's 3 parts to this application. This is one.
I have a question about the guardrail component. Have you had conversations with people from the town yet about that? I remember at the first hearing, I think Ted Keon was there, and he had some concerns about where the limits are and where their rights are, and so.
Yeah, sure. Through the chair. Let's see. Let's get this plan here. So we do understand that the town people that have been used to parking and Ted's use of the property and kind of allowing people to park, but our survey indicates that the property line of ownership is right here and right here. So the entire guardrail and all the way down is on Mr. McDonald's property.
Okay.
So we're just still allowing people to park on the paved surface where they can, but we're pushing the guardrail in as tight as possible so that we are keeping it on the property owner's property.
Okay.
So the townspeople and Ted might not like that, but I think there's a reason for us to be putting it here to protect the coastal bank, number one, and to protect the property owner as far as liability goes for people parking on his, quote, his property. I don't think the discussions have gone much further than that, though, through the chair.
The owners certainly realize that there will be additional conversations with the town. We're really just seeking conservation, and we're aware that your permit will clearly state as part of the standard conditions that you're not giving any other rights, civil rights to the project. This is purely conservation approval. That's all we're looking to review today.
Okay.
Through the chair, thank you, Seth.
Yeah, I would feel comfortable if we had a reaction from the town, and probably in the person of Ted, with this information in mind, because I don't think we had that before. In other words, does he concur? Because I'll say for me, I'm just speaking for myself, I don't want to vote on something that's going to cause this sort of disruption among the townsfolk. I'm just not prepared to do that. So I want, if Ted analyzes this and says, yeah, they have their right to put the guardrail in that location, then that'll be good enough for me.
Through the chair, I would note that we're still have a lengthy, probably close to 2-year permitting process with the Chapter 91 Waterways Program. I think there are going to be attorneys working on this. I've not seen a conservation matter get held up over a civil legal question validly in the past. So I would ask you to reconsider that. That could be months before there's resolution on that, which will still be months before the project goes forward.
Right, yeah, it doesn't seem like you're in a big hurry, so.
Well, we are in a big hurry to start the next round of permitting, which we can't do until this is done. So we're not looking for you to adjudicate the civil matters. That's another matter. We're just looking for you to adjudicate the conservation matters, which the two issues really should be separate.
Well, I do see them as intertwined.
And could you put that in a regulatory framework?
I'm not sure that I can.
Through the chair, I would like the entire commission to consider that this property owner, through the property line survey that was done by a registered land surveyor indicating ownership, that this should not be held up as far as conservation goes, when it's really, like what Seth is saying, a matter for maybe the townspeople learning not to be on someone else's property. This is a stamped and certified plan that is of record.
Does the town have
that
it?
would be what I would really want the commission to consider when they deliberate on the conservation matters. Thank you.
All right, well, yeah, noted. Does the town have a copy of this survey?
It's in the registry of deeds, actually. Not this particular plan, but the property line plan is that this was generated from.
This plan was emailed to Ted prior to the hearing beginning.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Before this hearing started, this plan was emailed to Ted. He got an advanced copy of
so
this
he has
plan.
it.
So
all right, that's good.
He's aware.
Yeah, that's good. As far as the fiber roll array, what you provided was essentially evidence that it's mostly invasive. I guess that's the way I could interpret it. As a justification for installing the fiber roll array, I guess. Is that,
Yes, I'm sorry. I need to take a very quick break. This is running a little later, and I have to just respond to my kid's school.
Okay, all right. Well, we all have time constraints here.
Do you want me to stop sharing, Seth?
Oh, he had to jump.
He's gone, all right.
So, Don, I have a question for you.
Sure.
The plan that you were just showing, the property line that shows the location of the guardrail, is that the same one? We had that from last time, right? That has not changed?
Yes,
Is that the same one
yeah.
that we have in the file? Okay.
Yes.
I just wanted to make
You
sure I
have
have.
You have an existing conditions plan, which is this one, that
Yep.
shows the actual property line
Yep.
and the boundaries. And then superimposed on that is the other plan, which is the salt marsh plan that shows the proposed guardrail.
Okay.
So yes, you have two plans that show that information, easements as well as property line.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Don, if I could share, that would be helpful. Sorry, I have to jump off for a moment.
Hold on,
We are approaching the bewitching hour here, where we're going to
Okay.
we're going to be moved to a different room. So
Okay.
we need to, probably in the next couple of minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
With that said,
so,
go.
great leading. Yes, so the summary of we did 2 vegetative observation plots. As you can see that, we used the same technique that's used for wetland delineations. It seemed appropriate for this type of.
Uh-oh, he's frozen.
It's frozen? Okay, you're offline, looks like so.
Froze.
Everything's going to heck. All right, so,
Is this a sign of we moving?
Yeah, maybe they're cutting us off. All right,
I'm
all right.
texting Seth.
I think if,
Let's take this moment while Seth's offline.
yeah, I think this is the right moment to
Yeah,
move.
All right.
I don't know how
Sure,
that's
through
gonna
the
work on
chair,
your,
yeah.
I don't know how that's gonna work on your end, whether it's the same link,
Should be.
same,
Should be.
okay.
be.
So when we close out, we just have to click on the link again to get back on?
I'm not sure.
Is that right, Mark?
Okay,
Mark is gonna talk to us.
So the meeting will be moving to the small meeting room here in the annex. The same link from your agenda will be active. The small meeting room is already in the Teams meeting, so as soon as you can make the physical move, I think you can call the meeting back to order. And
Or do we have, we don't have
Do we
to
have to,
adjourn? Do we have to adjourn?
I'm not sure if you have to adjourn or not. It
We're
might-
just moving.
just move it?
just moving,
No.
okay.
We're not adjourning.